Chapter 421 Five Elements Mountain. Mayer smiled gently at Jean Liang and said, "I'm surprised to see you, Jean, at the Five Elements Mountain." After exchanging pleasantries with the three great saints for a while, Mayer returned to Yi Chen's side. Not long after the arrival of the three great saints, five more late-stage heavenly saints hastened to the gathering place. After that, no one else appeared. All the participants for the Five Elements Mountain expedition had arrived. As Yi Chen's gaze swept over the area, he ascertained the number of adventurers. This time, a total of 2,362 people from the 33 continents had joined the expedition to the Five Elements Mountain. Of course, this didn't include those hidden within spatial treasures. Like Yi Chen, who carried 9 major icy guards with him, he was sure there were many others who also secretly brought along late-stage Heavenly Saint experts as a covert protective measure for entering the expedition site. Of course, martial artists below the late-stage Heavenly Saint level dared not bring anyone in spatial treasures into the Five Elements Mountain. Yi Chen had already inquired. Aside from those who were late-stage Heavenly Saints and those who possessed expedition tokens, others, if hidden within spatial treasures, could easily be killed by the forces at the checkpoints. There were, however, exceptions regarding certain spatial treasures, like the divine artifact, Ice Snow Jade Amulet, Yi Chen carried, which could transport lower-level martial artists into the Five Elements Mountain. But the dangers of the Five Elements Mountain were unparalleled, and nobody would casually take low-level martial artists inside. Once all the personnel had arrived, the agreed-upon time for the official start of the Five Elements Mountain expedition finally came. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the appointed time, 2 figures appeared out of the void. One was clad in the robes of Heavenly Evolution Palace, and the other in the robes of the Mystery Pavilion, none other than the founders of the 2 largest second-tier sects of the Heavenly Evolution continent. The old ancestor of the Heavenly Evolution Palace and the Mystery Heavenly Saint of the late-stage Heavenly Saint from the Mystery Pavilion. Upon seeing these 2 figures, Yi Chen's breath caught in his chest. Although they weren't emanating any aura, Yi Chen knew by intuition that their strength was greater than that of Palace Master Yuan Li, likely ranking among the topmost layer of power among the late-stage Heavenly Saints. Then, from within the divine artifact, Ice Snow Jade Amulet, came the voice of Bing Shi. Yi Chen. These 2 are probably the strongest late-stage Heavenly Saints here. Their strength is only slightly less than Bing Shire and me, stronger than the other guards. Hearing Bing Shi's words, Yi Chen was equally astonished. That's strong. Yi Chen knew that being one of the Heavenly Saint-level guards capable of serving the Ice-Sealed God King, from Bing Shi to Bing Shirjiu, their strength was terrifying to contemplate. Now the fact that the 2 Heavenly Saints from the 2 major second-tier sects of the Heavenly Evolution continent were only slightly weaker than the top 9 icy guards of Bing Shi and Bing Shire naturally caused him immense shock. While Yi Chen was still reeling with shock, the other adventurers' gazes were all fixated on the old ancestor from Heavenly Evolution Palace and the Mystery Heavenly Saint. Even Jean Liang, the leader of the 3 great saints, bowed respectfully to these 2 Heavenly Saints. At that moment, the old ancestor from Heavenly Evolution Palace and the Mystery Heavenly Saint, looking at the more than 2,000 adventurers, finally spoke. This expedition to the Five Elements Mountain will be led by the 2 of us. Before heading to the Five Elements Mountain, there are some things you may already know, but I still want to emphasize them once again. The Five Elements Mountain is divided into the first mountain, second mountain, third mountain, fourth mountain, and fifth mountain. While the first 4 mountains are extremely dangerous if you are extremely cautious, there is still a great chance of survival. But as for the 5th mountain, you must absolutely not set foot there. No matter how formidable you are or how many hidden trump cards you have, once you step onto the 5th mountain, you are likely to face annihilation. The words of the old ancestor from Heavenly Evolution Palace and the Mystery Heavenly Saint caused countless adventurers, even those who were late-stage Heavenly Saints, to have a moment of intense concentration. They had heard of the dangers of the 5th mountain, but the repeated emphasis from these 2 great Heavenly Saints made them all the more determined to steer clear of it. Apart from the 5th mountain, you may attempt to explore the other 4 gigantic mountains. There is no set pattern for the expedition. In any case, be very cautious. Staying alive is the most important thing. After saying this, the two great heavenly saints looked at the adventurers in the field with an almost amused expression. The perils of the Five Elements Mountain don't only lie in the dangers of the expedition site, but also in the dangers posed by the other martial artists. This I need not explain in detail. You should understand it yourselves. With this subtle hint from the two great heavenly saints, countless martial artists felt a jolt of alarm. Of course, they understood what the two great heavenly saints meant. The Five Elements Mountain, as an expedition site, was bound to reveal treasures of incredible value, and the inevitable strife that these treasures would provoke could not be avoided. And it wasn't just strife over valuables that was feared. Many grudges and mortal enemies would likely take advantage of the Five Elements Mountain to settle things once and for all. In the past, countless adventurers who explored the Five Elements Mountain perished amidst the myriad dangers of the expedition, definitely not at the hands of other adventurers. This was something all adventurers knew in their hearts. Upon hearing the words of the two heavenly saints, many people secretly cast wary glances at those around them, and there were quite a few with plans in mind whose eyes flickered with a cold light that went unnoticed by anyone, clearly harboring malicious intentions. Among them was Ao Lei, who had always wanted to target Yi Chun. What perhaps no one knew was that Jin Liang, the lead figure among the three great saints, also had cold light flashing in the depths of his eyes. Even the other two saints accompanying Jin Liang did not know what Jin meant by saying they were going to the Five Elements Mountain to seize one thing, kill one person, what exactly they were to seize and who they were to kill. After reminding the adventurers to beware of other martial artists, the Elder of Heavenly Evolution emphasized one last thing. The most important matter for this expedition is that you only have 3 months' time. After 3 months, regardless of where you are in the Five Elements Mountain, you must make your way to one of the 99 virtual void teleportation locations in the mountains and teleport out from there. Remember, if you do not exit after 3 months, then you will be trapped in the Five Elements Mountain and die. It doesn't matter if you are of the Heavenly Saint realm or below. Even if you are a first tribulation true god, you will certainly perish. Because, after the 3-month expedition time ends, a violent virtual void hurricane will sweep through the entire Five Elements Mountain. A hurricane that can kill all powerhouses. These virtual void hurricanes, not even a first tribulation true god can withstand. Remember, the 3-month expedition time, as well as the rules for entering and leaving the Five Elements Mountain, were all gained through the experience of countless martial artists at the cost of their lives. You absolutely must not violate them. After re-emphasizing the critical timing for exiting the Five Elements Mountain, the mystery heavenly saint also spoke up. All right, I have told you everything that needs to be said. In short, grasp the 3 months you have, and explore within the Five Elements Mountain. How you allocate the 3 months, how you overcome the crises within the Five Elements Mountain, are all up to you. We too will only escort you into the Five Elements Mountain. The rest is up to your own fortune. Now, everyone, board the Aurora Holy Boat and embark with us towards the Five Elements Mountain. After the mystery heavenly saint finished speaking, he pointed a big hand towards the void, and a palm-sized silver-white flying boat instantly burst into the void. Whoosh! 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 The flying boat rapidly expanded against the wind, and in a blink of an eye, it became 1,000 feet large. Following the leading of the Elder of Heavenly Evolution and the mystery heavenly saint, figures flew one after another into the flying boat, making swoosh, swoosh, swoosh sounds. Yi Chun, let's go too. The adventurers from the barbaric wilderness continent, led by the skyscraper palace master, all flew into the flying boat as well. Huameyer and other female martial artists from the leaving fire continent, along with Ao Lei, the 3 great saints, and several thousand martial artists from other continents, flew onto the flying boat in just a moment. Once everyone had boarded, the mystery heavenly saint immediately steered the flying boat, departing from the Rift Sky City, heading towards the vast expanse of heaven. Rumors say that the Five Elements Mountain is hidden within a void vortex outside the Heavenly Evolution continent, a series of 5 massive mountains obscured by the void. I wonder how long it will take to enter that void vortex and see the Five Elements Mountain. Yi Chun stood among the crowd on the flying boat, watching the void pass by outside of it. After about half an hour, he could feel that the flying boat had left the territory of the heavenly evolution continent and entered the pitch-black extraterritorial realm. The fierce black wind outside the flying boat made the protective barriers hum noisily, as if they were on the verge of collapse at any moment. Just by looking at that black wind, Yi-chun knew that it was definitely a terrifying extraterritorial hurricane capable of killing countless powerhouses. Probably only the mystery Heavenly Saint's high-grade holy boat could withstand it. If it were Yi-chun's lower-grade heavenly origin boat, it would probably be torn to shreds by this black wind instantaneously. The Aurora holy boat carefully advanced through the pitch-black extraterritorial realm, while nearly all of the thousands of adventurers in the boat looked through its protective barriers at the mysterious extraterritorial realm of the great continent. After about an hour of flight, everyone on the flying boat finally saw a faintly visible, shimmering light cluster in the distance. At this moment, the Elder of Heavenly Evolution and the mystery Heavenly Saint's voices reached everyone's ears. That shining light cluster is the space hiding the land of the 5 elements. Once you enter it, you will reach the true 5 elements mountain. The words of the Elder of Heavenly Evolution and the mystery Heavenly Saint made the adventurers who had never entered the 5 elements mountain before feel both excited and nervous. At this moment, Yi-chun, staring intently at the glowing light cluster ahead, took a deep breath. 5 elements mountain, the place to comprehend the laws of the 5 great virtual heavens, the land of adventure. Here I come. Chapter 422, First Mountain. After about the time it takes to brew a pot of tea, the Aurora holy boat finally arrived at the edge of the shining light orb. From a distance, the shining light orb looked very small, but only when they truly approached it did they realize that it was dozens of times larger than the 1,000-zhonglong Aurora holy boat. In the pitch-black outer domain void, the entire shining light orb was like a beacon tower flashing with endless light. When the boat finally steadied at the edge of the shining light orb, Yi-chun saw that within the orb there was a vortex of 5-colored light. Not only did Yi-chun notice the peculiar vortex of 5-colored light, but the other adventurers did as well. Seeing all the adventurers aboard the boat peering at the 5-colored light vortex inside the light orb, the elderly ancestor of heavenly evolution and mystery Heavenly Saint said with a smile, "This 5-colored light vortex is the void vortex that leads into the inner space of the 5 elements mountain. Step into this void vortex, and you will be directly transported to the realm of the first mountain within the 5 elements mountain, officially starting your 3-month expedition. After 3 months, on the day the expedition ends, you will be teleported from the 99 teleportation points within the 5 elements mountain, back through this void vortex. At that time, we will be waiting here for your return. Now, all those who are to participate in the expedition to the 5 elements mountain, prepare to enter this vortex." Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. After the words of the elderly ancestor of heavenly evolution and mystery Heavenly Saint fell, all the adventurers on board stood up. They had finally arrived at the 5 elements mountain. The expedition to the 5 elements mountain, filled with great dangers but also possible immense rewards, was finally about to begin. At this thought, everyone's hearts fluctuated intensely. Even many of the adventurers who were visiting this expedition site of the 5 elements mountain for the first time began to hesitate and fear. "Let's go, we're not newcomers to the 5 elements mountain. Let's head in first," said Jean Liang to the other 2 Saint Heirs in the crowd. After casting a glance and giving a gentle smile to Huameyer standing next to Yi-chun, he took a step into the void, leaving the boat, and then walked straight towards the 5-colored light vortex. "Ha-ha! Then we'll go ahead." The other 2 Saint Heirs, seeing that Jean Liang had taken the lead, also smiled and nodded at the other adventurers before following Jean Liang's steps. In an instant, all 3 of them disappeared into the vortex of 5-colored light. Watching the backs of these 3 Saint Heirs, Jean Liang, disappear, Yi-chun then glanced at Huameyer beside him. By chance, Yi-chun noticed a deep hatred in her beautiful eyes. Hatred? Yi-chun was taken aback. He remembered that when Huameyer first saw Jean Liang, she had whispered to him that Jean Liang was not to be taken lightly and had asked him to be extra careful. Later, Yi-chun specifically asked Huameyer what she meant by that, but Huameir just smiled lightly and did not elaborate. At that time, Yichun guessed that there might be some connection or even a likely rift between Huameir's home in leaving Fire Continent and Jin Liang's Shenjin Continent. Now, seeing the look of hatred deep in Huameir's eyes, Yichun felt even more certain about his speculation. The relationships between the 5 major holy sites were probably not as simple as they appeared. Perhaps Huameir's presence at the 5 Elements Mountain and even Jin Liang's arrival had something to do with each other. Thinking of the name Jin Liang, Yichun recalled when he was at the Taishan sect, he had also met a fellow sect brother named Jin Liang. However, that Jin Liang had perished in the Heavenly Saint ancient tomb. It's common for warriors from the same continent to have the same name, let alone across different realms of the 33 continents, where countless others also share the same names. The Jin Liang brother from back then left a very good impression on Yichun, but this Saint heir Jin Liang, just as Huameir had mentioned, gave Yichun an odd feeling, as if beneath his warm exterior, he was hiding very deep thoughts. Yichun couldn't help but seriously take notice of this Jin Liang. Whoosh! 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 As the 3 Saint heirs led by Jin Liang stepped into the vortex of 5-colored light and completely entered the 5 Elements Mountain. The other adventurers naturally didn't want to fall behind and flew into the void vortex like locusts. In the end, all of them disappeared into the vortex, vanishing from sight. Let's go as well. I have been to the 5 Elements Mountain 3 times before. The 5 giant mountains inside are akin to 5 small continents, all immensely huge. Once we fly in, all of us will probably be teleported to different locations. We can only encounter each other if we charge forward through the mountains. The biggest chance for a rendezvous is in the 5 Elements Divine Temple, inside the 3rd mountain. Inside the 5 Elements Divine Temple, there are comprehension insights of the heavenly void law left by strong adventurers from previous expeditions to the 5 Elements Mountain. Almost every adventurer who reaches the 3rd mountain will go there to observe these insights. If we get scattered after entering, let's plan to meet at the 5 Elements Divine Temple in the 3rd mountain. The Skyscraper Palace Master carefully instructed Yichun and the other adventurers from the barbaric wilderness continent before taking the lead to fly into the vortex of void. After nodding at Huameir, Yichun followed the Skyscraper Palace Master and the adventurers from the barbaric wilderness continent into the vortex of void. Behind Yichun, Huameir, accompanied by 2 maidservants and 8 heavenly saint maidens, also flew into it. Within moments, the thousands of adventurers on the flying boat had all vanished into the vortex of void, entering the 5 Elements Mountain. Seeing that all the adventurers had left the Aurora Holy Boat and were embarking on their exploration of the 5 Elements Mountain, the ancestors of the Heavenly Evolution and the Mystery Heavenly Saint exchanged glances inside. Who knows how many of these people will be able to return alive, and how many will make good discoveries. Let's go, we'll come back here in 3 months to pick them up. After a series of sighs, the ancestors of the Heavenly Evolution and the Mystery Heavenly Saint flew back into the Aurora Holy Boat. The Aurora Holy Boat then departed from the shining orb, returning to the Heavenly Evolution continent. The entire pitch-black outer domain void returned to tranquility, with only the lighthouse-like shining orb still floating in the darkness. Traversing. A strange sense of traversal. This feeling was as if he were being transmitted from the ancient teleportation formation to the Heavenly Evolution continent. However, this sensation quickly vanished, and soon after, Yichun found himself landing on a vast green plain. Yichun marveled at the immensity of the green plains, then raised his head to look forward, only to see an even higher plain ahead, and if he looked even higher, he could faintly make out more stacked plains. Yichun took flight from the massive green plain and stood in the farther reaches of the void looking down at these layered green plains, and suddenly it dawned on him. This was no vast green plain at all. This was clearly an enormous green stone, and ahead massive green stones could also be seen. All the green stones stacked together, and he was indeed standing amidst the steps of a colossal mountain. Flying for nearly half an hour from these steps to the side, Yichun saw the astonishing giant trees and waterfalls, the first mountain. By then, Yichun knew that this was the first location, the first gigantic mountain of the 5 Elements Mountain adventure. The first mountain is this big. Just one green stone stair used for climbing the mountain is like a vast green plain. I'm afraid the whole first mountain spans tens of thousands of miles. Just to fly out from here to the second mountain would probably take days. The skyscraper palace master said that once everyone enters the first mountain, they will be transported to different places. As immense as the first mountain is, thousands of adventurers within it are like drops of rain in the sea, hardly likely to meet one another. Yi-chun felt a profound sense of awe in his heart. Then, taking out the map of the Five Elements mountain he had prepared earlier, Yi-chun began to fly in the void, searching for his location on the map. Once he had determined his position, Yi-chun shot towards the other side of the mountainside. Yi-chun planned to go directly through this mountainside to reach the other side of the first mountain, then cross the void chasm between the first and the second mountain, and proceed deeper into the second mountain. After collecting information about the Five Elements mountain, Yi-chun knew that within the first mountain there were countless Five Elements phantom beasts that would attack adventurers, including Five Elements phantom beasts with the strength of latter stages of heavenly saints. However, the first mountain had the least amount of treasures, and it wasn't very beneficial for comprehending the five great heavenly void laws. In the second mountain, there were places where the five great heavenly void laws were explained, and he could even witness the birth of the five great heavenly void laws' origins. There, comprehending the five great heavenly void laws would be far better than on the first mountain. Even better were the Five Elements divine temples in the third mountain for comprehending the five great heavenly void laws. With only 3 months for this adventure through the Five Elements mountain, Yi-chun certainly wouldn't waste time in the first mountains and hurriedly headed to the later colossal mountains. With such plans in mind, the other adventurers also harbored the same intentions. Viewed from the entire first mountain, the 2,000 to 3,000 adventurers were now scattered in different places, immense as the mountain was. Huomeyer, at that moment, was a full 20,000 miles away from Yi-chun, having been transported to a mountain hollow. The very first to set out, the Saint Heir Jin Liang, was already in the second mountain and had entered a giant fiery pool within it. The one closest to Yi-chun wasn't anyone else, but surprisingly Ao Lei. When Ao Lei entered the Five Elements mountain, those 4 late-stage heavenly saints guarding him all entered one of his spatial treasures. Their transportation did not separate them, so the 5 of them were still together. At that moment, Ao Lei was only a mere 300 miles away from Yi-chun. What neither party knew was that as they flew, the distance between them was getting closer and closer. Chapter 423 Kill Him. In the void, Yi-chun, who had been flying along the undulating slopes of the first mountain, suddenly came to a halt. Bing Shi, Sr., are you saying that Ao Lei is nearby? And he's getting closer to me? Just now, as Yi-chun was flying, the voice of Bing Shi suddenly reached his ears through telepathy, telling him that they had discovered Ao Lei and his group. At this moment, the distance between Yi-chun and Ao Lei was still over 200 miles. With Yi-chun's current strength, his divine consciousness could not probe such a vast distance. However, Bing Shi, with his cultivation at the pinnacle of the late heavenly saint stage and the strongest among the 9 ice guardians, naturally had a much wider range of divine consciousness than Yi-chun. Ao Lei and the 4 late-stage heavenly saints had just entered his range of divine consciousness and were immediately detected by him. Lord Yi-chun, it is indeed that Ao Lei, and he is followed by 4 other late-stage heavenly saints. Bing Shi relayed from within the ice snow jade pendant, sensing the situation on Ao Lei's side and speaking to Yi-chun. Those 4 late-stage heavenly saints are the ones we saw with Ao Lei at the gathering place before setting out to explore the Five Elements mountain. Yi-chun nodded. At the gathering site, Yi-chun had already seen Ao Lei accompanied by 4 late-stage heavenly saints. 2 of them were Ao Quan and Ao Hu, who had clashed with Bing Shiba and Bing Shurjo. The other 2, as the Ice Guardians had mentioned to Yi-chun before, were a bit stronger than Ao Quan and Ao Hu, with strength nearly on par with that of Bing Shurwu's combat level. Who would have thought, in a place as vast as this, the first adventurers I would encounter in the Five Elements mountain would be Ao Lei and his followers?
Yi-chun similed.
Contained within that faint smile, Yi-chun continued to fly forward. Even after discovering Ao Lei, Yi-chun did not think of turning around to avoid him. Was he afraid of Ao Lei? If Ao Lei dared provoke him, let him try. After Yi Chun continued to fly, the distance between him and Ao Lei grew even shorter. When the two were around 200 miles apart, Ao Xian, who was beside Ao Lei, suddenly lit up with excitement. "Young master, guess what I've discovered?" Ao Xian, excited and with a strange expression, called out to Ao Lei. "What have you found?"
Ao Lei eskich, puzled. Ye Chen.
Ao Xian laughed. "Young master, I sense that Yi Chun is in a place about 200 miles away from us. Who would have thought we'd encounter him here? And he's there alone, without Huameyer by his side." Upon hearing the name Yi Chun, Ao Lei's expression changed dramatically. "Haha, Yi Chun? What a coincidence. To think I'd run into him so soon after arriving in the Five Elements Mountain. He's finally on his own. I thought we'd bump into him later. It seems fate has decreed that he will die by our hands. Xian, Ming, Quan. Who? Let's hurry and intercept Yi Chun. We can't let him get away. By killing him, we can also seize back the Void Heaven Sword embryo he auctioned off. Once we leave the Five Elements Mountain, we can bring the Void Heaven Sword embryo back to our father." Ao Lei was bursting with excitement, and the other four heavenly saints also showed eager expressions. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The five of them instantly increased their speed and flew even faster toward Yi Chun. That Yi Chun is still flying towards us. He doesn't know that he's about to meet his end without a grave. While flying, Ao Xian sneered and spoke. Ao Lei and the other heavenly saints laughed heartily. "Lord Yi Chun, Ao Lei and his group must have sensed you. They're quickening their pace and flying towards you." Bing Shi, Bing Shire, and Bing Shirsen all voiced out to Yi Chun at this time. "They've discovered me, and they're deliberately speeding up to come my way." Yi Chun thought with a cold smile. "It seems they're quite convinced they can take me down. Since that's the case, let's meet them." Hearing Yi Chun's words, the 9 ice guardians inside the ice snow jade pendant chuckled, and they began discussing among themselves, "Which one of us should make a move this time?" Boom! 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 Characters at the late stage of Heavenly Saint level could fly at an astonishing speed, and neither Yi Chun nor Ao Lei were slow in their flight. The two parties, each with their own thoughts, instantly closed the distance between them. When they were about 100 miles away, Yi Chun deliberately sped up and veered off in a different direction. As expected, Ao Lei and the 4 heavenly saints immediately changed course and continued to pursue him. Ao Ming, one of the 4 major heavenly saints alongside Ao Lei, said, "It seems Yi Chun has noticed us. Does he think he can escape? Let's quickly catch up to him." Boom! 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 Ao Lei and the 4 others ignited their true chi and chased after Yi Chun at high speed. 100 miles. 50 miles. 30 miles. In Yi Chun's deliberate acceleration and subtle slowing down, in the high-speed chase by Ao Lei and his group, the distance between the two parties grew ever closer. At last, when they arrived at a vast plain between the mountains, the 4 major heavenly saints from Ao Lei's group directly formed an encirclement, trapping Yi Chun in the void. By then, Yi Chun had already stopped in the void, his eyes fixed on the 4 major heavenly saints forming the encirclement. He sensed that the 4 major heavenly saints were setting up a heavenly saint barrier, clearly intending to shield all interference, and deal with him within this barrier directly. Setting up a heavenly saint barrier to prevent others from knowing I've been attacked by you? That's perfect. I also don't want others to know that it was I who had a conflict with you in the Five Elements Mountain. Yi Chun had already anticipated what was about to happen. He directly transmitted a message to Bing Shi. "Senior Bing Shi, make a move and shield this space. Do not let others notice this place." "Yes, Lord Yi Chun." After Yi Chun spoke, Bing Shi immediately acted, shielding the vast expanse of the void within tens of thousands of feet. Bing Shi was immensely powerful, and Ao Lei's group didn't sense his action at all. Ao Lei, standing beside Ao Xian, heard Ao Xian transmit to him that they had set up the barrier, and with a cold smile, looked toward Yi Chun, tauntingly saying, "Yi Chun, You think you can escape after encountering us? How is it that Huameyer isn't by your side this time? Let me tell you, last time outside the Sandsea Palace, I intended to deal with you. It was Huameyer who meddled and saved your life. Now, just obediently give up your life. Rest assured, this whole area has been covered with a heavenly saint barrier now. Not to mention that it's very unlikely to encounter other explorers here. Even if they did, they wouldn't find you. They wouldn't be able to save you. Listening to Aolei's words, Yichun smiled lightly and shook his head. Escape? I've never thought to escape. I was merely leading you to a more spacious area. You said that last time you wanted to take action, but only because of Huameyer I managed to survive by chance? Actually, Huameyer saved your lives. Otherwise, when you made a move against me last time, you would have been dead already. As for the heavenly saint barrier, not letting others see, all the better. Seeing Yi Chen's calm smile, Ao Xian and Ao Ming were shocked. They had a vague feeling that Yi Chen must have some kind of ace up his sleeve to be so calm. Otherwise, it would be impossible to be so jovial and unconcerned now while being surrounded by 4 late-stage heavenly saints. Ao Xian and Ao Ming became secretly wary in their hearts. Meanwhile, Ao Lei, who was watching Yi Chen smile, was infuriated. Every time he met Yi Chen, he felt ignored in various ways by him. Even now, with the full force of the 4 late-stage heavenly saints as guards, Yi Chen was still disregarding him. This feeling had already made Ao Lei quite upset. Yi Chen, don't think I don't know what ace you have up your sleeve. Isn't it just those 2 giant beast heavenly saints? Do you think they, who could previously barely deal with Quan and who can now stop Xian and Ming? Bring them out and die together with you. With that, Ao Lei turned to the 4 heavenly saints Ao Xian, Ao Ming, Ao Quan, and Ao Hu and said, 4 uncles, make your move, help my father seize back the void heaven sword embryo. Kill this Yi Chen. Kill him. Chapter 424. Purple Mist True Garment. Kill this Yi Chen. Kill him. Ao Lei's roaring voice surged throughout the entire expanse of the void. Yet, from the outside, one could neither hear Ao Lei's voice nor see the tense standoff of several people within this patch of the void. The heavenly saint barrier set up by Bing Shi and Ao Xian in their later stages had already concealed the imminent outbreak of a great battle in this vast mountain clearing. Within the barrier, hearing Ao Ming's words, the 4, including Ao Xian and Ao Ming, exchanged glances. Although they were somewhat concerned about Yi Chen's composure, they knew that now was not the time for hesitation. Killing Yi Chen and seizing the void heaven sword embryo was a task they had to undertake. If there truly was a change, then they would respond to the situation as it developed. They couldn't possibly let go of Yi Chen simply because of a vague sense of concern. At that thought, the 4 heavenly saints simultaneously sprang into action. Their staggering late-stage heavenly saint power surged forth, converging on Yi Chen to kill him. The attack speed of a late-stage heavenly saint was exceedingly fast. In but a flash, the 4 heavenly saints were upon Yi Chen. Their attacks, incredibly, turned the very air of the void into lethal force, blasting toward Yi Chen. Seeing the 4 heavenly saints make their move, Ao Lei folded his arms within the void and looked on at Yi Chen with a cold sneer, believing that in the next moment, Yi Chen would be nothing but a corpse. Ao Lei's sneer had just started spreading across his face when, in the next instant, it froze. Because, as Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group launched their attack on Yi Chen's body instantly emitted 4 rays of light. These 4 rays of light were unmistakably the 4 great ice guardians: Bing Shiba, Bing Shurjiu, Bing Shursi, and Bing Shurwu. The instant the 4 ice guardians appeared from the ice snow jade pendant, they erupted with a tremendous fighting force and directly confronted Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group. The bull-headed and human-bodied mighty Bing Shiba and the lion-faced and human-bodied Bing Shurjiu had once exchanged blows with Ao Quan and Ao Hu. The 2 guardians had sent Ao Quan and Ao Hu reeling backwards with a palm strike, so their fighting power was, of course, higher than that of Ao Quan and Ao Hu. And the fighting power of the giant spider Bing Shurwu was already at the strongest level of Ao Xian's group. while the 9-armed humanoid Bing Shirsi, being stronger than Bing Sherwu, certainly overpowered their 4 opponents. This time, with the 4 Ice Guardians joining forces, and with Bing Sherwu and Bing Shirsi fighting on behalf of their Lord Yichun for the first time, they certainly brought out their true capabilities. In just a single move, the 4 Ice Guardians completely suppressed Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group of 4 heavenly saints. This sudden turn in the battle caused the complexions of Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group, who were engaged in the fight, to drastically change, and plunged Ao Lei into a state akin to falling into a cavern of ice. In an instant, Ao Lei thought back to what Yichun had said earlier. If he had dared to strike at Yichun, he would have died already. Initially, Ao Lei thought Yichun was boasting. How could Ao Lei have imagined that Yichun was not in the company of 2 late-stage Heavenly Saint Guardians, but 4? Moreover, the 2 newly revealed Guardians were stronger than his Uncle Xian and Uncle Ming. Yichun had not been boasting. Yichun truly had the power to kill them. At this realization, Ao Lei's heart began to pound violently, and he dared not imagine the outcome for himself after Ao Xian and Ao Ming's defeat. As Ao Lei's heart raced, a voice he did not wish to hear reached his ears. It was undoubtedly Yichun's voice. "Sirs, while your heavenly saints are engaging with mine, shouldn't we also have a match?" As Ao Lei looked up, he saw Yichun had already appeared before him. Glancing at Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group, who were already at a disadvantage and could be defeated at any moment, and then at the calmly smiling Yichun standing before him, Ao Lei knew that he had really bitten off more than he could chew this time. In a flash, the thought of fleeing sprang to Ao Lei's mind. He would not confront Yichun directly, because once those 4 Guardians won their battle, they could easily turn to kill him, leaving him with absolutely no chance of escape. With this thought, Ao Lei's figure burst forth, not caring in the least about Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group, and he made a beeline for the edge of the void to escape. Seeing Ao Lei's fleeing figure, Yichun gave a light smile and did not pursue. As Ao Lei saw that Yichun did not chase him and wondered why. During this life-and-death moment he didn't dare to waste time thinking and only wanted to flee as far away as possible. Just as he was about to fly out of the area, he heard a boom, and he was blocked by an inexplicable force. A barrier. Instantly, Ao Lei thought of a barrier. The barrier set by Ao Xian and Ao Ming's group wouldn't stop him. The only possibility if he was being blocked was that this barrier was set up by Yichun's side. Yichun's side had also set up a barrier? Ao Lei had no idea, and even Ao Xian and Ao Ming beside him hadn't noticed before. Struck dizzy by the barrier's impact, Ao Lei's face was now pale, and at that moment, Yichun's faint voice reached his ears again. "You can't escape now. If you don't make a move, I'm afraid you'll never have the chance again." Boom! 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 Blocked by the Heavenly Saint barrier, Ao Lei, who turned around to look at Yichun, was thunderstruck when he saw the situation of the battle behind him. His mind exploded with a thunderous roar. In the moment he had turned to flee and been blocked by the barrier, the 4 behind him, Ao Xian, Ao Ming, Ao Quan, and Ao Hu, had been instantly killed on the spot. As he turned back, he witnessed the treasures from the bodies of Ao Xian and the others flying towards the 4 mighty beasts fighting for Yichun. At the same time, the 4 of them were shred by those beasts' formidable combat power, not even leaving ash behind. His immensely proud experts of the late Heavenly Saint stage had been killed in an instant, without even having a chance to scream. The vast void was now left with only him, Ao Lei, and at this moment, as Yichun spoke to him, the 4 protectors lazily watched him, clearly not having made a move, indicating that Yichun wanted to deal with him personally. "It's over. I'm completely finished." Ao Lei could never have imagined that Yichun, whom he considered insignificant, would have so many trump cards. Had he known this would happen, he wouldn't have sought revenge on Yichun. Even if Yichun not only sold the Void Heaven Sword embryo but even auctioned off his treasure cave key. But there was no pill for regret now, for Ao Lei realized that Yichun had already surged with incredible combat power and was now right in front of him. Boom! 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 In an instant, Yichun's body erupted with astonishing black flames, flames of the heaven-devouring true fire. a fire technique divine art that had amalgamated little blue flame true fire, green disaster true fire, and purple flame spirit fire. The black flames transformed into a terrifying black dragon and, in a swift motion, wrapped around Aole and drew him close to Yi Chun. Aole, at the late stage turning Dan realm, had true combat power but was no match for even one move from Yi Chun. Yi Chun, if you dare kill me, my father will never let you go. Our beast alliance will flatten your barbaric wilderness continent. Surrounded by the heaven-devouring true fire transformed into a monstrous black dragon, Ao Ming bellowed, pale as a ghost. With his 4 heavenly saints dead, he could only resort to using the identity of his father, head of the Beast Alliance Ao Chan, to press Yi Chun and hope for a slim chance of escape. But Yi Chun would give no such chance to Aole. Your father? If your father were here today trying to kill me, I would kill him too. Flatting the barbaric wilderness continent. That's beyond his abilities. What's more, this place is covered by the heavenly saint barrier. You wanted to kill me unnoticed before, but now that you're dead, it's just as silent. The barbaric wilderness continent had the true Phoenix, a 5th-level divine deity, and Mulan, a 3rd-level divine deity, 2 powerful beings. Even if Ao Chan had reached the late heavenly saint stage or was a true deity, he wouldn't dare easily invade the barbaric wilderness continent. Moreover, there was no normal way to enter or exit between the barbaric wilderness continent and the 5 continents of the Beast Alliance, only through ancient transmission arrays. In a real battle, once the arrays were destroyed, the Beast Alliance couldn't even get into the barbaric wilderness continent. Why would Yi Chun worry about the people from the Beast Alliance? Seeing that Aole was still stubborn, Yi Chun couldn't be bothered to waste time on him. With a gesture, the terrifying black dragon engulfing Aole turned into ferocious flames, instantly engulfing his physical body. The new fire technique divine art, heaven-devouring true fire, which had assimilated 3 flames, including the mid-grade sacred artifact purple flame spirit fire, now had the killing power of a mid-stage heavenly saint, easily capable of crushing most at that stage. Yi Chun expected that if the black flames touched Aole, he would likely be killed instantly. However, to Yi Chun's surprise, as right when the flames made contact with Aole's body, a faint purple garment light shadow suddenly appeared, as if he was wearing another garment outside his clothes. This purple garment shadow immediately blocked the true flames upon contact, repelling the heaven-devouring true fire which could crush most mid-stage heavenly saints. Yi Chun let out a light gasp at this turn of events. He instantly realized that the purple shadow around Aole's clothes might be a top-notch defensive sacred artifact vestment robe, or even a divine artifact. On Aole's side, seeing his divine artifact vestment robe, the purple mist true garment, fend off Yi Chun's fiery assault, Aole's ashen face slightly relaxed. Although his expression eased, his taut heart was still unable to settle. He might have a powerful defensive divine artifact, but he had no strong offensive power and still couldn't cope with Yi Chun. He saw the black flames that couldn't breach his purple mist true garments. Defense transform back into the huge black dragon and wrap around him again. Once more, he couldn't even move. In this situation, no matter how strong his defense, he could only passively endure the blows. And now, Aole heard Yi Chun's devilish voice. Quite a strong defensive robe. If so, then let's see if other means can break through this defense. When Aole looked at Yi Chun, he saw dazzling golden arcs breaking through the void on Yi Chun's hand. Chapter 425. The dazzling golden beams that pierced through the void were none other than Yi Chun's newly cultivated golden light divine slash, one of the 5 great divine arts now within his grasp, polyethnic to the gold attribute divine art. Having refined a portion of the supreme divine fruit, the virtual gold Holy Spirit fruit, Yi Chun's gold attribute divine art had reached about 10% of its full potential. Additionally, the gold attribute divine art was always renowned for its powerful and sharp attacks. Now facing the formidable defense of the purple mist true garment, Yi Chun certainly wanted to test just how effective his newly cultivated gold attribute divine art was. Hiss! 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 As Yi Chun activated the gold attribute divine art, golden light divine slash, The striking golden arcs emitted a terrifying sound that slashed through the void, instantly reaching Ao Lei's vicinity. As a result, the golden arcs were once again blocked by the purple garment's radiance. Not only has it blocked the fire attribute divine art, but it can also withstand the gold attribute divine art. Even the gold attribute divine art that hasn't been fully mastered is unable to breach this defensive garment. While the golden light divine slash was unable to penetrate Ao Lei's defenses, Yichun was not disappointed. Rather, he felt an unexpected surge of excitement. Ao Lei had already become unable to escape. If the purple garment's radiance was sufficiently strong, then Yichun harbored the intention to seize this defensive artifact and refine it thoroughly for his own use. However, before that, he still had to test whether this defensive garment was worth refining. With a flip of his palm, the golden arcs of the gold attribute divine art vanished from Yichun's hand. In the next moment, he abruptly unleashed the wood attribute divine art, wood emperor stacking skill. In the time that followed, Yichun seemed to be experimenting, deploying various techniques. He utilized not only the fire, gold, and wood attribute divine arts, but also the water and earth attribute divine arts that followed. He even employed the great five-element swordlight and other sword technique divine arts. Moreover, Yichun even brought out the combined force of several divine arts, trying to breach the purple radiance surrounding Ao Lei's garment. As Yichun tested his techniques, Ao Lei, who was continuously under attack, was going utterly mad. Humiliation. This was a humiliation that Ao Lei had never experienced before. Although Ao Lei's divine artifact garment, the purple mist true garment, could withstand all sorts of attacks from Yichun, there was not a trace of joy in Ao Lei. Of course, he couldn't feel happy. Ao Lei felt as though he was nothing but a target, unable to escape, forced to endure Yichun's relentless attacks, his constant experimentation. This feeling was no different from being toyed with. Ao Lei even momentarily hoped that Yichun would soon break through the defenses of the purple mist true garment and kill him. If this continued, he felt he might die of rage before even being killed. Yichun, however, did not care much about Ao Lei's thoughts. The more he tested, the more astonished Yichun became. He had not expected the purple radiance of Ao Lei's garment to possess such an incredible degree of defense, so much so that nearly all of his techniques had been deployed, yet none could breach the garment's defenses. It's possible that this purple garment is not just an exceptional artifact but indeed a defensive divine artifact. Considering that the purple radiance garment might be a divine artifact, Yichun's heart began to pound wildly. This Ao Lei, possessing such formidable defensive clothing, why doesn't he have an attack magical treasure? If he were to possess an equally powerful attack treasure, it would be quite a challenge to take him down.
Yichun's thoughts raged.
After employing the last of his techniques to no avail, relying on true chi techniques and martial divine arts that could not affect the defensive garment, Yichun contemplated, it seems I must use divine soul techniques to deal with Ao Lei. If I can't break his defenses, I could instead kill Ao Lei's divine soul from the inside. Once the garment becomes masterless, perhaps then it could be seized. With this idea in mind, Yichun immediately communicated with the 9 ice-sealed guardians. Consequently, all 9 guardians nodded, asserting the viability of his plan. Bingshi even volunteered eagerly, offering to take action on Yichun's behalf if his divine soul techniques proved ineffective against Ao Lei, willing to kill Ao Lei himself. Even if Ao Lei owned a divine artifact-level defensive garment, Bingshi claimed to have methods to bypass such defenses and kill Ao Lei directly. However, now was not the time for Bingshi to intervene. Yichun flew directly above Ao Lei, who was entangled by the black fire dragon formed by the fire-attributed divine art, heaven-devouring true fire, and reached towards the empty space above Ao Lei's head with his hand, as an immense force of divine soul surged violently towards Ao Lei. Although the continuous thrashings had already made Ao Lei contemplate death, when Yichun actually came to kill him, he screamed in terror, "Yichun, what do you want to do? If you really kill me, my father will never let you go."
Yichun completait l'ignorer Ao Lei's créances.
This Aole had first tried to kill him, and even when he deliberately changed his flight direction, Aole had followed him with 4 heavenly saints. Yi Chun would certainly not let such a person go. As the immense force of divine soul surged towards Aole, Yi Chun discovered that his divine soul's power had actually penetrated through the defense of the purple vestment's light shadow and directly into Aole's mind. This defensive garment can block true chi techniques, but not divine soul techniques. Divine soul techniques can indeed bypass the garment's defenses and directly use divine soul to kill Aole. As the immense power of divine soul penetrated Aole's mind, Yi Chun immediately activated the soul-searching secret skills, simultaneously searching Aole's divine soul for memories and using the soul-searching secret skills to strangle Aole's divine soul. This soul-searching secret technique was a major killing move Yi Chun obtained from the Forbidden Divine Tome, a divine soul cultivation scripture from Heavenly Saint Moya. Previously, it was with this divine soul secret technique that Yi Chun had found the mastermind behind Heavenly Saint Feng Luan's attempt on his life, hidden within Feng Luan's memories, Yin Chenjue. Now, Yi Chun intended to use this soul-searching secret technique to kill Aole and, incidentally, to investigate this matter of the purple vestment's light shadow. Boom! 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 Yi Chen's soul-searching secret technique was a saint-level divine soul technique. Aole, who was in the late stage of spinning pill realm, could not defend against it at all. In just a moment, Aole's entire divine soul was completely destroyed. Although his physical body still existed, with his divine soul eradicated, Aole was completely dead. After destroying Aole's divine soul and searching his memories, Yi Chun turned to the faint purple glow of Aole's garment. His eyes suddenly widened. This garment turned out to be a lower-quality divine artifact called Purple Mist True Garment, obtained by the Myriad Beasts Alliance from the Divine Heritage Cave. Furthermore, the defense of this Purple Mist True Garment plays a significant role in breaking through the crises of Divine Heritage treasures and entering the Divine Heritage Cave. No wonder Aole was so eager to snatch the treasure cave key. He planned to use this divine artifact garment to safely enter the cave. Yi Chun had not expected to uncover such a great secret from Aole's memories. Previously, at the final auction in the Sand Sea Palace, the last treasure, the key which grants access to the most mysterious and valuable Divine Heritage Cave in the 5 Elements Mountain, Treasure Cave Key, had incited a frenzy among many attendees. Back then, since there was only a 10% chance of surviving the entrance to the Divine Heritage Cave, Yi Chun chose not to contend for the Treasure Cave Key. Ultimately, the Treasure Cave Key fell into Aole's hands. At the time, Yi Chun wondered why Aole, who was rather prestigious, would take such a big risk to enter the Divine Heritage Cave with the Treasure Cave Key. Now, Yi Chun finally understood. Aole did have a divine artifact garment that could boost his safety chance up to 50% when entering the Divine Heritage Cave. 50% was already very safe for exploring secret realms, and such a risk was definitely worth taking. Now that Yi Chun understood why Aole possessed such a powerful defensive garment yet had no attack magical treasure, it turned out he had specially prepared this treasure to enter the Divine Heritage Cave. With this realization, Yi Chun's heart skipped a beat. Since Aole could enter the Divine Heritage Cave with the Purple Mist True Garment and Treasure Cave Key, and Aole was now dead, all these treasures could be of use to him. Does that mean he could also enter the Divine Heritage Cave? The Divine Heritage Cave, it is rumored to contain shocking divine arts, real divine artifacts, divine fruits, divine liquids, and even the divine legacy of true gods, with unprecedented secret techniques to challenge the 9 supreme heavenly tribulations of the void sky true god. Previously, it seemed too risky and not worth the danger, but now with the purple mist garment, perhaps I could have a look there. Of course, Yi Chun hadn't made a final decision yet about whether to go to the Divine Heritage Cave or not. After all, his most important task was to advance through the middle and late stages of spinning pill in the 5 Elements Mountain. But whether he went or not, these treasures should be properly kept on his person first. With that thought, Yi Chun hesitated no further. Having killed Aole's divine soul, the The faint purple light of the garment that enveloped Aolei's clothing had become unclaimed, and Yi Chun, following the ritual method for claiming garments from Aolei's memory, pinched a magical sign with his hand and directly took the purple light into his possession. Once the hidden restrictions of the purple mist garment's light shadow were removed, revealing the garment's true form, Yi Chen's eyes lit up. His true form turned out to be a purple droplet. Upon proper consecration, this purple droplet could transform directly into a mist of purple fog that enveloped the user's entire body and finally clung to the outside of the clothing, exhibiting a defense garment's light shadow. This garment is a defensive artifact, and although it is a lower quality artifact unable to block divine soul techniques, it is very effective against true chi techniques and attacks from martial skills and divine arts. With a thought, Yi Chun placed the purple mist garment's true form, the purple droplet, into the ice snow jade pendant. Then, pointing a finger at Aolei's physical body, Aolei's storage magical treasure also flew towards Yi Chun. As Yi Chen's divine sense soaked into the storage magical treasure, he noticed the ultimate treasure from the previous auction, the black iron box that contained the treasure cave key, prominently within the storage magical treasure. Besides the black iron box, the storage magical treasure contained over 10,000 top-grade spirit stones and other treasures. After scanning these treasures, Yi Chun put the entire storage magical treasure into the ice snow jade pendant. Then, with a point of his finger, the black true fire instantly incinerated Aolei's entire corpse to nothingness. Chapter 426 Encounter on the Road. Yi Chun felt neither remorse nor excitement about the deaths of Aolei and those 4 late-stage heavenly saints. The world of martial arts was fraught with danger. Often it was a matter of kill or be killed, especially when it came to contention over treasures, secret lands, and opportunities. Countless skirmishes ensued. If it hadn't been for the help of Yi Chen's 9 frozen guardians, he might have been the one to die instead of Aolei.
Naturale, Yi Chen felt no pity for Aolei.
People like Aolei sought to harm others first, and their deaths were not regrettable. Powerful ancient clans such as the Divine Phoenix clan faced annihilation due to the Phoenix Divine Blood and the Nirvana Pool, 2 treasures that provoked disaster. Numerous Void Sky True Gods fell during the Great War between the 3 clans. Those deaths truly evoked sighs. At this moment, faced with the deaths of Aolei and the 4 heavenly saints and recalling the casualties of the war between the 3 divine clans, Yi Chun had only one realization. He needed to be even more cautious in his martial arts cultivation while also striving to become stronger. After recalling the 4 frozen guardians, Bing Shirsi, Bing Sherwu, Bing Shiba, and Bing Shurjo, back into the ice snow jade pendant, Yi Chun was the only one left in the vast clearing amidst the mountains. At this time, Yi Chun did not rush to leave, but instead sat down cross-legged on the flat ground, preparing to refine the purple mist true garment. Back in the heavenly sacred tomb, faced with the soul possession attempt by the heavenly Saint Mo Ya, Yi Chun was protected from the soul attack thanks to the soul defense sacred artifact, Tiana Yuan Yi, given to him by Phoenix Spirit. Tiana Yuan Yi was an incredibly powerful divine artifact of the Divine Phoenix clan that countered soul attacks. Yi Chun already possessed a secret soul defense artifact, but he had yet to obtain one for true chi defense. Now, the purple mist true garment was not only a true chi defense artifact but also of divine artifact grade. Furthermore, it would be greatly useful for venturing into the divine treasure cave, so Yi Chun naturally wanted to refine it for his own use right away. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, with a thought from Yi Chun, the true form of the purple mist true garment, a purple droplet, flew directly out from the ice snow jade pendant and hovered in front of Yi Chun. Following the secret method of artifact refinement he searched from Aolei's memories, Yi Chun began to officially refine the treasure. As Yi Chun cast a technique toward the purple droplet of the purple mist true garment in midair, the entire droplet suddenly pulsated and began to expand and enlarge as if boiling, eventually turning into strands of hazy purple mist that enveloped his entire body. At that moment, a drop of blood flew out from Yi Chen's body, and a wisp of his divine sense also directly entered the purple mist. What followed was the process of refining and recognizing the purple mist true garment as its master. About the duration of 1 cup of tea later, the purple mist true garment was finally fully refined and recognized its master. By then, the hazy purple mist was completely clinging to the outer layer of Yi Chen's clothes, even faintly wrapping around his entire body. Furthermore, with a thought from Yi Chen, the purple mist could completely disappear from sight, becoming invisible to others. Only when the purple mist true garment was defending against an attack would this purple mist garment's silhouette be revealed. Having truly applied the purple mist true garment to his clothing, Yi Chen felt that this defensive divine artifact was astonishingly without the slightest burden, as though a faint layer of air was encompassing his body. Marvelous! This was the wonder of a divine artifact. Powerful defense, yet as if it were nothing at all. After refining the purple mist true garment, Yi Chen then took out the storage artifacts of Ao Xian and Ao Ming, given to him by the 4 late-stage heavenly saints, including Ao Lei. He meticulously sorted through the treasures within and, like the treasures obtained from Ao Lei, kept them all in the ice snow jade pendant. After that, Yi Chen stood up, and with a movement of his body, he shot into the void and left the mountainous area. In the days that followed, Yi Chen continued to journey from the first mountain to the deeper parts of the 5 Elements Mountain, the second mountain. During this period, Yi Chen was attacked by the 5 Elements Phantom Beasts more than a dozen times. Yi Chen easily killed those 5 Elements Phantom Beasts that were below the late-stage Heavenly Saint level by deploying his powerful techniques, and when encountering those 5 Elements Phantom Beasts of the late-stage Heavenly Saint level that were unstoppable, the 9 Frozen Guardians would take action and annihilate them. After 3 days, Yi Chen had remained safe and sound. Yi Chen traveled swiftly, not bothering to pick his path, so he encountered many formidable phantom beasts, especially 3 of the Heavenly Saint late-stage 5 Elements Phantom Beasts. If others had encountered these creatures, many would struggle to deal with them, and it would be very troublesome, with quite a few people even facing life-threatening danger. As Yi Chen made his way towards the second mountain, over 2,000 adventurers were also continuously heading towards the same destination. Many late-stage heavenly saints who could fly at incredible speeds had already entered the second mountain, while quite a few were still carefully advancing within the first mountain. Although many were extremely cautious, the number of fallen adventurers was not insignificant. After all, this was the 5 Elements Mountain, known as one of the 3 extremely dangerous areas for adventurers. Even the relatively safest first mountain was filled with crises. At the foot of the first mountain, the bodies of 2 mid-stage heavenly saints lay on the ground, and after their deaths, 4 mid-stage heavenly saint strength fire lions roared away. At the peak of the first mountain, a late-stage heavenly saint faced a giant green snake thousands of feet long with a face ashen as death, but the giant snake showed no concern for the heavenly saint's expression, bursting forth and wrapping the entire being within its massive body. Of course, where there were falls, there were also gains. At a certain place on the first mountain's waist, 7 Duandon late-stage powerhouses gazed at 18 golden fruits with surprise, exclaiming, This is a top-grade sacred fruit, the golden beard visage fruit. My goodness, 1 golden beard visage fruit can sell for hundreds of top-grade spirit stones. We never expected to stumble upon this. At another location on the waist of the first mountain, 8 early-stage heavenly saints were emerging from a black cave, with faces full of excitement, looking at the ancient colored weapons in their hands that emanated a powerful sacred light, observing them closely. Battles, conflicts, deaths, finds. This was what constantly happened in the land of adventure. On the 4th day since Yi Chen had entered the first mountain, according to the map, he was extremely close to the empty space of the heavenly moat between the first and the second mountain. 2 more days of travel should bring him to that place, allowing him to move onto the second mountain. On this day, as Yi Chen was flying along the massive waist of the first mountain, he suddenly heard faint sounds of battle coming from ahead. During these days of travel, Yi Chen had encountered many adventurers. To avoid trouble, Yi Chen immediately unleashed his formidable fighting strength, and thus very few warriors dared to provoke him. Only 2 groups of warriors tried to stop Yi Chen, wanting to search him for treasures he might have found. As a result, these 2 groups were severely taught a lesson by Yi Chen. At this moment, noticing the sound of battle ahead, Yi Chen's divine consciousness swept forward to investigate. If it was nothing serious, Yi Chen intended to simply breeze past those engaged in the fight and continue flying forward. However, when Yi Chen's divine consciousness swept over, he let out a light exclamatory sound, for among the fighting crowd there were actually people from the heavenly sacred palace of the barbaric wilderness continent. In a depression ahead in the mountain, 5 mid-stage heavenly saints had surrounded 8 early-stage heavenly saints. Among those 8 early-stage warriors, 2 were wearing the uniforms of the heavenly saint mountain of the heavenly sacred palace. Seeing the 8 early-stage heavenly saints clearly at a disadvantage, with the 5 mid-stage saints repeatedly making lethal moves, had it not been for 3 among the 8 early-stage saints possessing decent divine artifacts and combat strength not weaker than the mid-stage heavenly saints, they probably would have already died. Seeing people from the heavenly sacred palace, Yi Chen, without any hesitation, shot forward in an instant, and in the blink of an eye he arrived above the mountain hollow where the crowd was fighting. Yi Chen's sudden intrusion startled all the heavenly saints engaged in battle. As Yi Chen approached, these heavenly saints sensed the arrival of a Duandan early-stage youth. A Duandan early-stage strength was far from comparably to theirs. They had originally thought that this early-stage Duandan would simply avoid the battlefield. However, he had decided to barge right into the fray. When the 2 mid-stage heavenly saint powerhouses clearly saw the face of the Duandan early-stage youth, their expressions changed immediately. These 2 recognized Yi Chen and had also heard about the time Yi Chen had called upon a late-stage heavenly saint-level helper during his great battle with Huomeyer. Now seeing that the arriving Duandan youth was none other than Yi Chen, they dared not underestimate him, and their expressions changed in an instant. Yi Chen had a late-stage heavenly saint-level helper, and if he decided to intervene and snatch the treasures they were eyeing, they would be in big trouble this time. These 2 mid-stage heavenly saints quickly communicated with the other 3 mid-stage saints, discussing Yi Chen's abilities. At this time, when the 2 early-stage heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain saw Yi Chen, they immediately cried out in excitement, "Yi Chen, we are heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain. We ask for your help to escape this deadly encirclement." Yi Chen landed directly in front of the 2 heavenly saints and nodded. "My friends, what's going on?" Chapter 427. Forbidden Ancient Lands. Upon hearing Yi Chen's inquiry, the 2 heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain hurriedly explained the situation in full detail. Through the descriptions of the 2 heavenly saints, Yi Chen finally understood why these 2 groups of people were fighting each other here. It turned out that the 2 heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain had, like Yi Chen, headed towards the second mountain while searching for treasures in the first mountain. Although they were early-stage heavenly saint martial artists, they had to be extremely cautious in the perilous 5 Elements mountain. Eventually, they encountered other adventurers and, facing a large group of 5 Elements phantom beasts, joined forces to break free from the pursuit of the beasts. As a result, they decided to team up together. Among the group, there were 8 early-stage heavenly saint martial artists and 1 mid-stage heavenly saint martial artist. Together, they formed a force not to be underestimated and safely made their way towards the second mountain. Just the day before, the group had accidentally encountered a mid-stage 5 Elements phantom beast during a chase and, following it, had stumbled into a cave behind a waterfall, leading to an astonishing discovery. They managed to acquire many precious treasures in the cave and even found a clue to the location of a map to the forbidden ancient lands. The treasures in the cave alone were shocking to the heavenly saints, and it was clear that the meticulously preserved map to the forbidden ancient lands would be even more valuable than the treasures in the cave. The group was then inspired to seek the treasures of the forbidden ancient lands together. They should have been on their way to hunt for treasure, but the only mid-stage heavenly saint in the team got greedy and quietly contacted for other mid-stage heavenly saints while the others were not paying attention. With the betrayal of this mid-stage heavenly saint, the 5 mid-stage heavenly saints joined forces to take the treasures and the newly discovered map to the forbidden ancient lands from the hands of the 8 early-stage heavenly saints in their party. Moreover, to ensure the map's information did not leak, they even contemplated murdering their former allies. By the time Yi Chen arrived, the 2 heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain and the other 6 early-stage heavenly saints were almost unable to hold on any longer. If Yi Chun had come any later, he might have only found several corpses, and even then, it was possible their bodies would not be left behind. Hearing the account of the two heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain, Yi Chun sighed and shook his head. Before entering the Five Elements Mountain, the ancestor of heavenly evolution and mystery Heavenly Saint had said that most adventurers ended up killed by other adventurers. Yi Chun had faced attempted murder by Aole and his group, and now these early-stage heavenly saints were likewise facing betrayal and murder for treasure by mid-stage martial artists. Probably, similar incidents were continually happening in other regions of the Five Elements Mountain as well. Yi Chun, you must save us. Otherwise, we won't escape the clutches of those people, pleaded the two heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain after explaining the situation. Originally, because of the betrayal by the only mid-stage heavenly saint and the joining of 4 more from the same stage, they were already prepared for death. They had not anticipated encountering Yi Chun. These two heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain were aware of Yi Chun's prowess. Although Yi Chun had entered the heavenly sacred palace much later than them, upon his arrival, he instantly caused a sensation at the Holy Temple Tower, attracting the attention of the powerful heavenly saints of Heavenly Saint Mountain and the two palace masters. Later, they heard that even Palace Master Yuan Li from Heavenly Sacred Palace highly esteemed Yi Chun, and that he had even killed Feng Luan Heavenly Saint. If it was just about killing Feng Luan Heavenly Saint and being regarded highly by the 3 palace masters of Heavenly Sacred Palace, they would have only considered Yi Chun an exceptional genius. But upon arriving at Rift Sky City in Heavenly Evolution Continent, they heard even more about Yi Chun's gambling duel with the Little Saintess from the Leaving Fire Continent and his conflict with Aole at the Sand Sea Palace auction. They also heard that Yi Chun had demonstrated techniques at the peak of the mid-stage Heavenly Saint level and had been aided by 2 late-stage Heavenly Saint seniors. Techniques at the peak of the mid-stage Heavenly Saint level. Aid from 2 late-stage Heavenly Saint seniors. When they heard this news, their perception of Yi Chun instantly shifted from exceptional genius to a true powerhouse capable of fighting with top mid-stage Heavenly Saint warriors. With the support of the 2 seniors, he was even a powerhouse daring to contend with late-stage Heavenly Saints. Now, facing a crisis between life and death, encountering a strong warrior like Yi Chun naturally filled them with immense surprise. It certainly gave them a glimpse of hope for survival. As long as Yi Chun agreed to help and one of his 2 late-stage Heavenly Saint seniors intervened, all 8 early-stage Heavenly Saint martial artists would be able to survive the hunt by the 5 mid-stage Heavenly Saints. Bearing this thought, the 2 of them naturally implored Yi Chun for help. Fellow Taoists, you are my fellow sect members. If I hadn't seen your situation, that would be one thing, but having seen it, of course I must help you, Yi Chun said in response to their pleas, gesturing dismissively as he spoke to the 2 heavenly saints from Heavenly Saint Mountain with a smile. Yi Chun's consent instantly thrilled the 2 heavenly saints. The 2 of them felt as though the weight that had been hanging over them had been completely lifted. The other 6 early-stage heavenly saints nearby, having discussed among themselves when Yi Chun inquired, already knew of Yi Chun's background. At this moment, hearing Yi Chun's willingness to help them, they were equally overjoyed. On the other hand, the 5 mid-stage Heavenly Saint powerhouses were extremely frustrated. They had almost seized the treasures and the map, only to run into Yi Chun unexpectedly. Hearing the feats of Yi Chun, as relayed by the 2 knowledgeable mid-stage Heavenly Saints, all 5 were fully informed. The thought of confronting Yi Chun, a man daring enough to gamble with the Little Saintess from Leaving Fire Continent, left them without the courage to fight. Now, hearing Yi Chun's intention to intervene, the several mid-stage Heavenly Saints were completely panicked. Upon Yi Chun's agreement, the 5 mid-stage Heavenly Saints glanced at each other before simultaneously bolting away in retreat. With each breath, the 5 had already fled several miles away, burning their true chi completely in the process. Yi Chun had already noticed the movements of these few. He said he would handle this matter, and of course he meant it. Among the 5, the most detestable was that mid-stage Heavenly Saint who had previously been with 8 early-stage Heavenly Saints and later betrayed them for a treasure and clues to the forbidden ancient lands. The other 4 mid-stage Heavenly Saints had developed murderous intents for the treasure, ruthlessly killing the 8 early-stage Heavenly Saints just moments ago. a scene Yi Chun witnessed vividly. Yi Chun certainly wouldn't let the 5 escape so easily. The moment those 5 were fleeing, Yi Chun raised his hand and instantly, there appeared 5 stunning golden arc lights in his palm. These 5 terrifying golden arc lights vanished the moment they appeared in Yi Chun's hand. In the next instant, the 8 early-stage heavenly saints watched in horror as something unexpected occurred. The suddenly vanished 5 golden arc lights flashed through the void in an instant, reappearing directly above the heads of the fleeing 5 mid-stage heavenly saints. Thud! 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 Without any effort, the 5 golden arc lights directly slashed down upon the 5 men. One of the arc lights instantly killed the betraying mid-stage heavenly saint, leaving not even ashes behind. The remaining 4 were pierced through their chi and meridians by the arc lights in an instant, crashing to the ground and rendered disabled on the spot. In just one move, he killed 1 mid-stage heavenly saint and disabled 4 other mid-stage heavenly saints. Yi Chen's action had completely changed the expressions of the 8 early-stage heavenly saints at his side. They had originally thought that to deal with these 5 mid-stage heavenly saints, Yi Chun would have one of the 2 late-stage heavenly saint elders take action. What they didn't expect was that Yi Chun would take matters into his own hands. What was even more unexpected was the ferocity of Yi Chen's attack. With one move, he killed 1 and disabled 4. This method of attack, striking in 2 different ways within a single move, was even more difficult than killing 5 at once. And these were all mid-stage heavenly saints. The 8 early-stage heavenly saints realized that if Yi Chun had wanted to kill the other 4, it would have been just as effortless. It was his intention to execute the ringleader and severely punish the other 4 that led to such an attack. Yi Chen's strength was not merely on par with the top-tier mid-stage heavenly saints. It was almost approaching that of a late-stage heavenly saint. With this thought, the 8 early-stage heavenly saints were naturally filled with shock. As these 8 early-stage heavenly saints looked at Yi Chun with changed faces and increasing awe, Yi Chun moved and was already in front of the 4 disabled mid-stage heavenly saints. "I will not kill you 4, he said. "Not far from here, there should be a spatial teleportation point for returning. You can head there and, when the 3-month exploration period ends, teleport out. Of course, your cultivation is now wasted, so whether you can survive until then depends on your fortune." After finishing his words, Yi Chun didn't bother with the several warriors lying on the ground, wailing. His figure flickered in the void and he was back beside the 8 early-stage heavenly saints. "Yi Chun. Thank you, Yi Chun, for your assistance." At this moment, the 2 heavenly saints from the heavenly sacred palace and the other 6 early-stage heavenly saints spoke to Yi Chun again, now with utmost politeness. It was different from hearing about him to seeing his strength firsthand. Yi Chen's move had scared them terribly. "All right, this matter here is settled and I should be on my way," Yi Chun said to them with a smile, gesturing with his hand, preparing to depart. Although 2 among these people were heavenly saints from the heavenly sacred palace, this expedition was everyone's own opportunity. Yi Chun did not intend to take them along with him. While Yi Chun thought this way, the several heavenly saints exchanged glances, then all bowed to Yi Chun. "Yi Chun, please wait." Yi Chun looked at the 8 with some confusion. The strongest among them, a heavenly saint from the Heavens continent who had previously blocked the attacks of a mid-stage heavenly saint, glanced at the other heavenly saints and then addressed Yi Chun. "Yi Chun, you must know about our ambush, so you probably also know that those people came for the map to the clues of the forbidden ancient lands. We have a favor to ask. Even though our strength is not bad, the forbidden ancient lands might not be easy to traverse. We hope that Yi Chun can travel with us to that place. Should treasures be found, we will let Yi Chun choose first, and then we will distribute the rest." After this heavenly saint finished speaking, the others nodded in agreement. "Yes, with Yi Chen's assistance, our chances of obtaining the treasures of the forbidden ancient lands will be greater. Moreover, Yi Chun has saved our lives. It's only right that you should have a share of the treasures. They're inviting me to explore the forbidden ancient lands?" Yi Chun felt a moment's hesitation upon hearing the words of these heavenly saints. After a brief pause, Yi Chun nodded and looked at the heavenly saints, Show me the map of the clues to the forbidden ancient lands first. Hearing Yi Chen's words, the leading heavenly saint from the heavens continent exchanged a look with the others before taking out an ancient scroll and handing it over to Yi Chen. Chapter 428, Breaking the Ban. They certainly weren't afraid of Yi Chen leaving alone with the clue-laden map. The means of Yi Chen they had just witnessed with their own eyes. Not to mention the rumors that Yi Chen had the help of 2 late-stage heavenly saints. Just Yi Chen's own capabilities would be enough to easily kill all 8 of them. If Yi Chen really wanted to kill for treasure and monopolize the clues to this forbidden ancient lands, then even if they refused to present the map, they would still be doomed. Everyone had a premonition that Yi Chen was not the kind of person who would directly seize the treasure and kill them. As expected, when Yi Chen took hold of the ancient scroll, he merely quietly began to read. This forbidden ancient lands actually involves the secret treasures of the 5 great void heavenly laws. There must be incredible treasures hidden inside. On the surface, Yi Chen appeared calm, but the moment he touched the ancient scroll, he felt all the divine pill patterns on the 5 apertures rotating pills within his body begin to surge. Upon closer inspection, Yi Chen discovered that it was the material of the map itself that was causing the divine pill patterns to react. Anything capable of affecting the divine pill patterns was undoubtedly precious. The mere material of the map was so extraordinary, without even considering, one could know the treasures within the actual forbidden ancient lands would be extremely precious. Yi Chen saw that the clue on the map pointed right to the second mountain of the 5 Elements Mountain. The second mountain also lay on Yi Chen's essential path. Before he went to the third mountain to comprehend the insights of the void heavenly laws within the 5 Elements Divine Temple, he had to observe the manifestations of the void heavenly laws at the second mountain, which indeed was not to be easily overlooked. Since I will be spending some time on the second mountain, I might as well take a look at this forbidden ancient lands. If there are no treasures or if it's too dangerous, then it's fine to leave. But if there are truly valuable treasures, then it would be an unexpected windfall. Once Yi Chen made up his mind, he handed the ancient scroll back to the heavenly saint of the heavens continent and said with a smile, "I'm indeed a little interested in this forbidden ancient lands, so let's go together. When the time comes, if we really find treasures, there's no need for me to choose first. Let's the 9 of us divide them equally." Upon hearing that Yi Chen truly agreed to travel with them, all 8 early-stage heavenly saints were overjoyed. In the perilous 5 Elements Mountain, having a powerful companion would greatly ensure their safety. Furthermore, Yi Chen's suggestion that the 9 of them share the treasures equally gave them a sense of recognition towards him. Yi Chen did not leverage his strength to demand more of the treasures, which made having him as a companion for treasure hunting far better than the treacherous mid-stage heavenly saint they had teamed up with before. After a private discussion, they unanimously agreed that if treasures were indeed found, for the sake of establishing a good relationship with Yi Chen, they would allow him to select the more valuable treasures. It's our honor that fellow Taoist Yi Chen is willing to join us. Since that is the case, shall we set off without delay? The heavenly saints all looked to Yi Chen. Yi Chen also responded with a light smile, "Let's set out." Thereafter, Yi Chen continued to make his way toward the second mountain. However, this time, he was not alone but accompanied by another 8 early-stage heavenly saints. Although their speed was slightly slower due to traveling together, it took them only 3 days to reach the void rift between the first mountain and the second mountain. This void rift was an abyss so deep that its bottom was invisible, and looking to the other side, one could see a towering mountain, standing on the far side of the abyss. This towering mountain was the second mountain of the 5 Elements Mountain, a magical mountain where the origins of the 5 great void heavenly laws were manifested. After spending another day, the 9 of them safely crossed the void rift and officially arrived at the territory of the second mountain. Once on the second mountain, Yi Chen headed directly towards the location marked on the Forbidden Ancient Lands map according to its clues. For days passed in this manner. From their initial encounter to their journey together, it took a full 8 days for Yi Chen and the other 8 early-stage heavenly saints to finally approach the location indicated by the map. During these 8 days, the 9 of them encountered numerous dangers. They even faced attacks from late-stage heavenly saint phantom beasts 5 times. The less threatening dangers were directly dealt with by the 8 early-stage Heavenly Saint warriors, while the more formidable mid-stage Heavenly Saint-level threats were personally handled by Yi Chun. For the truly insurmountable late-stage Heavenly Saint-level dangers, Yi Chun would then call upon seniors like Bing Shiba or Bing Shurjo to assist. When they saw that Yi Chun really had a spatial treasure and was indeed accompanied by late-stage Heavenly Saint seniors, the 8 early-stage Heavenly Saint warriors became completely deferential to him. Even the thought had occurred to them that if they could always follow Yi Chun in the 5 Elements Mountain, their chances of surviving safely and obtaining great gains would be much higher. However, these were matters to discuss with Yi Chun after exploring the Forbidden Ancient Lands. Now, as they were getting close to the Forbidden Ancient Lands, everyone rallied their focus and cautiously approached the area. After another half-day's travel, Yi Chun and the 8 early Heavenly Saint martial artists finally arrived at the location indicated by the map of the Forbidden Ancient Lands. This was supposed to be a position at the foot of the second mountain, a colossal mountainside, and when Yi Chun approached with his divine consciousness, he felt it blocked by an inexplicable force. Yet, when Yi Chun and the 8 early Heavenly Saint martial artists actually entered the mountainside, they were taken aback. In the mountainside, there were actually around 70 to 80 martial artists. The exploration area of the Forbidden Ancient Lands had unexpectedly attracted so many martial artists, and judging by their appearance, they were also explorers who had entered the 5 Elements Mountain in the same batch as Yi Chun. Among these 70 to 80 martial artists, there were even over a dozen in the later stages of Heavenly Saint. But Yi Chun did not recognize these people, and by the looks they gave Yi Chun and his companions, it was clear they didn't recognize them either. What's going on? As Yi Chun and the 8 early Heavenly Saint martial artists exchanged puzzled looks, those 70 to 80 martial artists also noticed them. One of the later stage Heavenly Saint martial artists asked Yi Chun with a wry smile, "You must have found this place because you obtained a map of the Forbidden Ancient Lands as well, right?" Yi Chun nodded. "Is that so for you too?" The later stage Heavenly Saint martial artist nodded helplessly. "Indeed, all of us, including you, are the 7th group to arrive here based on the map of the Forbidden Ancient Lands. At first, we thought we were the only ones who had the map, but now it seems there are many copies. We don't know if there will be others following us here." Hearing about the numerous copies of the map and seeing so many martial artists, even those in the later stages of Heavenly Saint, the 8 early Heavenly Saint martial artists beside Yi Chun were somewhat disappointed. With so many people, even if there really were treasures, what fell into their hands would probably be very little. Moreover, with later stage Heavenly Saint martial artists present, if a fight broke out over the treasures, it would certainly be extremely dangerous. However, the idea of turning around and leaving was not something the 8 of them were willing to consider. After all, having come all this way, they certainly didn't want to return empty-handed. At this moment, Yi Chun wasn't paying attention to the thoughts of the early Heavenly Saint martial artists. He looked at the later stage Heavenly Saint martial artist who had spoken to him, examined the situation in the mountainside again, and asked, "With so many people gathered here, have they found the treasure location or ancient cave of the Forbidden Ancient Lands?" As Yi Chun asked, he noticed that apart from the standing martial artists, the mountainside was empty, let alone any treasure site. Only at the very back of the mountainside, a space of several dozen zhang in circumference was shrouded in layers of brown fog, which seemed to hold a secret. At this time, many martial artists had congregated around the fog. Could it be that the secret of the Forbidden Ancient Lands ultimately lies over there? Such a small area can't be the treasure site directly. The Forbidden Ancient Lands, could it be that it's a restriction leading to the ancient treasure land? As Yi Chun observed the area enveloped in brown fog, the later stage Heavenly Saint martial artist, as if seeing through Yi Chun's thoughts, nodded and said, "That place might indeed be where the restriction of the Forbidden Ancient Lands is located. Only by breaking the restriction can we truly find the ancient treasure land hidden within." Of the 7 groups here, the earliest arrived 3 days ago, but even they, after studying for 3 days, have been unable to break the restriction. Stepping into that fog, there's nothing but emptiness. Yet the fog contains mysterious fluctuations. Based on our continuous experiments, it seems that we need to combine the 5 elemental magics of gold: wood, water, fire, and earth to break the restriction and truly locate the ancient treasure land amidst this enigmatic mist. Among the 6 groups that came before us, there are already individuals who possess 4 types of elemental magic: gold, wood, fire, and earth. Do any of you understand the water elemental magic? If so, we can try again to break the restriction. If not, we may have to wait and see if anyone else comes. If all else fails, we might have to spread the word and find a martial artist who understands the water elemental magic to help. As the later stage Heavenly Saint martial artist spoke, Yi-chan also stepped toward the brown fog. As Yi-chan drew near the brown fog, he sensed a surge of colorful light churning within it. With a gesture of his finger towards the fog, countless droplets of water from the water elemental magic, heavenly origin divine water, stirred within the fog, and indeed, for an instant, the fog parted. However, the gap closed quickly after. Yi-chan's attempt had drawn the attention of many onlookers, and upon witnessing the light of water elemental magic flickering from Yi-chan's finger, a dozen later stage Heavenly Saint martial artists immediately surrounded him. Fellow Taoist, you actually understand water elemental magic? Before, many martial artists didn't pay much attention to Yi-chan when they saw he was only at the early stage of rotating pill realm. They only started paying some attention to Yi-chan after noticing that the 8 early Heavenly Saints regarded him as their center. Now, unexpectedly, this young man in the early stage of rotating pill actually had knowledge of water elemental magic. This naturally filled everyone in the mountainside with surprise and delight. With the water elemental magic, coupled with the 4 who had already tried to break the restriction with their own elemental magics of gold, wood, fire, and earth, the 5 of them joining forces might indeed have a chance at breaking the restriction. Chapter 429 Earth Temple, Strange Fruit. I have indeed cultivated a water attribute divine art. Seeing the astonished expressions of the Heavenly Saint realm powerhouses beside him, Yi-chan smiled and spoke out. Would you be willing to lend a hand with us and try to break this restriction? At this moment, 4 martial artists stepped forward directly. These 4 were precisely the ones who had already attempted to break the restriction with gold, wood, fire, and earth divine arts before Yi-chan arrived at this place. Yi-chan nodded. Then let's try it together. After examining with his water attribute divine art, he found that indeed, the removal of the ancient site's restrictions was related to the 5 great heavenly void law divine arts. Having come here, Yi-chan was naturally willing to give it a try to see if the restriction could be broken, and he too was curious to see what would appear in this hollow after the restriction was lifted. Hearing Yi-chan agree to join forces, the martial artists on the scene were genuinely excited this time. The earliest batch of people here had already been waiting for 3 days. Now, there was a great hope for breaking the strange fog restriction in the hollow, which made them thrillingly excited. However, before Yi-chan and the other 4 made their move, the Heavenly Saint from the later stage who had spoken to Yi-chan earlier turned to look at all 70 or 80 martial artists in the hollow and raised his voice. Now that this fellow Taoist and his group have arrived, and he's willing to help break the restriction, let's stick to the rule we discussed before. If we indeed find a treasure location within this restriction, the 5 who break the restriction will have the priority to select 1 treasure, and the rest of the treasures will be obtained by the rest of us according to our luck and capabilities. Agreed. We agree. This rule had been negotiated by the first 6 groups, and after the late stage Heavenly Saint reiterated it, the others nodded. After all, without the 5 of them breaking the restriction, the others wouldn't be able to search for treasures. Allowing Yi-chan and the other 4 to pick a treasure first was only fair. As for the leftover treasures, everyone would rely on luck and capabilities to obtain them. The statement was very broad, but at this moment, there were more than a dozen late-stage Heavenly Saints in the area, and of course they did not want to share the treasures equally with others. Searching for treasures based on capabilities was all they could agree to. We have no objections either. The 8 early-stage Heavenly Saint martial artists who had come with Yi-chan also nodded with a wry smile. They understood that the late-stage Heavenly Saint martial artists' reiteration of the rules was more for this new group. With 70 to 80 martial artists now present, the situation was no longer what the earlier few had imagined, and they too had to abide by the consensus. Yi-chan glanced at the martial artists around him, saw their expressions and nodded. Since everyone agrees with this arrangement, Let's do it this way. Right now, let's first try to break the restriction. If we can't break it, there's no point discussing anything else. Yes, break the restriction first. Yi Chen's words rallied the crowd of martial artists to flock to the edge of the brown fog that covered dozens of yards at the deepest part of the hollow, both tense and expectant, waiting for Yi Chen and the other four to act. After exchanging glances, the five of them took a step at the same time and stood at the edge of the fog. Whoosh! 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 The four individuals beside Yi Chen, each mastering one of the gold, wood, fire, and earth divine arts, started to harness them directly. The one cultivating the gold attribute divine art was a mid-stage heavenly saint warrior, who suddenly spat out a small bead of pure gold from his mouth. The bead kept rotating rapidly, and as the mid-stage heavenly saint warrior's hand movements quickened, the strength of the gold attribute divine art on the bead grew increasingly powerful. The one who employed the wood attribute divine art was a late-stage heavenly saint existence. He stomped fiercely on the ground, causing huge vines to emerge and grow around him, which kept getting longer as they faced the wind. There was also someone with a true fire light surging between his fingers as he channeled the fire attribute divine art, and another mid-stage heavenly saint existence who took out an earth bowl treasure with powerful earth attribute divine art force radiating from within. Both made their move as well. The gold, wood, fire, and earth divine arts were respectively operated by two mid-stage and two late-stage heavenly saints. Apart from them, the fifth divine art, the water attribute divine art, was used by Yi Chen. Of course, Yi Chen's mastery of divine arts was not just confined to the water attribute divine art. He had also cultivated all five of the heavenly void law divine arts. However, with many martial artists present and their strengths unclear, Yi Chen would certainly not reveal all of his techniques when four others had already exhibited theirs. Since only the water attribute divine art was needed, he only activated the heavenly origin divine water. Yi Chen's water attribute divine art, the heavenly origin divine water, had absorbed and refined two sacred-grade low-level water attribute secret treasures. Although its power had only reached about 1.5% of the full potential of a great achievement in the water attribute divine art, when Yi Chen truly put it into action, the luminosity of the water attribute divine art from his hands was in no way inferior to the other four heavenly saint beings. At the moment of divine art activation, Yi Chen's body was surrounded by hundreds of powerful, mysterious azure blue water beads, each emitting a dazzling water attribute divine art light. The majority of the other martial artists' gazes were fixed on Yi Chen. Before Yi Chen's arrival, they had seen the other four attempt to break the restriction multiple times, and they had some understanding of the divine art techniques of those four heavenly saint realm warriors. What worried them the most was Yi Chen, the youth newly participating in breaking the restriction. After all, Yi Chen was only at the early stage of rotating pill cultivation, and although he had cultivated the water attribute divine art, if its power was too weak and affected the breaking of the restriction, it would be disastrous. In such a situation, the martial artists couldn't help but be concerned. At that moment, upon witnessing that Yi Chen's water attribute divine art was no less powerful than the other four heavenly saints, a group of warriors were both astonished and delighted. 5 great divine arts, each incorporating the laws of the heavenly void, were all powerful, with no clear weakling among them. In that case, the combined might of the 5 arts could indeed attempt to break the enchantment. Unconcerned with the warrior's worries, Yi Chen, having activated his water attribute divine art, nodded at the 4 others channeling the metal, wood, fire, and earth divine arts, and forming hand seals. Their surging divine power rushed toward the brown mist ahead simultaneously. A shocking event then took place. Previously, whether a single divine art was employed or 4 were used together, they could only slightly disperse the brown mist. But now, as the 5 great divine arts were infused at once, an exceedingly strange transformation occurred. The entire brown mist, covering tens of zhang, went into a frenzied flow instantly, moving similarly to the direction of true qi flowing through a martial artist's meridians. After completing 18 large circuits, the brown mist ripped apart down the middle, revealing a vast void about 30 zhang across. Within this void, One could see that it was not the empty space that had been previously shrouded by mist. Instead, one could clearly see large stone steps enveloped in rolling true qi. After the simultaneous operation of the 5 great divine arts of the heavenly void law, the brown mist actually broke the blinding enchantment, exposing a new secret realm. Steps. There are actual steps inside the brown mist. Where do these steps lead? Could it be the pathway to the treasure hunt location? The enchantment is broken. Thanks to the combined force of the 5 great divine arts of the heavenly void law, the exterior barriers have indeed been shattered. Observing the phenomena within the mist, all the warriors screamed with excitement. These warriors, capable of reaching 5 Elements Mountain, were all individuals of no ordinary caliber, having experienced countless explorations and broken through enchantments to enter secret realms. It was clear to them that this was indicative of a real hidden realm emerging after the enchantment was lifted. Let's go. Let's enter the stairs and see what treasures are inside. The 4 heavenly saints who had broken the enchantment with Yi-Chun, seeing the revealed stone steps within the mist, were the first to dash into the interior. The other warriors hesitated for a moment but soon rushed in after them, entering the space beyond the enchantment. Yi-Chun watched as these warriors, faces filled with anticipation, surged into the true secret area of the enchantment. It held something that shielded against the probing of divine thoughts, making it impossible to see far into it. One could only see that the steps led upwards, reaching a higher ground. Yi-Chun felt that, following the breaking of the enchantment, the divine pill law pattern on his 5 apertures rotating pill within him grew lively with movement. Clearly, as with the initial contact with the enchantment's ancient land clue map, something he needed might indeed be present within. After touching the ice-snow jade medallion he carried, Yi-Chun smiled slightly and flew into the actual secret area within the enormous void of brown mist. Following him were the 8 Heavenly Saint Realm early-stage warriors who had come with him, each entering the secret realm as well. In a short time, the 70 or 80 warriors outside had all but disappeared. Upon entering the real secret area, Yi-Chun discovered that there were hundreds of steps on the staircase. After ascending the steps, Yi-Chun saw a small earth temple before him. In front of the earth temple, 2 trees were growing, and the warriors who had entered the secret area before him were all gathered beneath these trees. Looking up at the trees, one could see that they were of the same species, each bearing slender, arm-length fruits. Together, the 2 trees bore hundreds of such fruits. At this moment, the warriors were all staring up at the fruits, and a few even had expressions of disbelief on their faces. These fruits. Yi-Chun also looked curiously at the slender, arm-length fruits. He noticed that they emitted the auras of the 5 aspects of the heavenly void law metal: wood, water, fire, and earth, and were shrouded in multicolored lights, making them seem extraordinarily mystical. Not only the fruits, but even the leaves on the trees beside the fruits were incredibly peculiar. The leaves were not of one color, but of gold, green, blue, red, and brown, variegated and resplendent to the extreme. Simply standing under these 2 large trees, Yi-Chun could feel the power of the heavenly void law pouring into his body, leaving him feeling invigorated. As for the multitude of fruits, evidently the essence of the entire trees, one could imagine just how precious they were. Chapter 430 Sudden Change. Void Sky Quintessence Fruit. These are the Void Sky Quintessence Fruits. As Yi-Chun was examining these peculiar fruits, the martial artists who had previously revealed an incredulous expression at the sight of them could no longer contain their exclamations, clearly recognizing the origin of these fruits. Void Sky Quintessence Fruit? What kind of treasured fruit is that? Hearing the astonishment of these few martial artists, all the remaining 70 or so warriors all looked towards them. Even just by seeing these fruits, they knew they were precious, but few actually knew the reputation of the Void Sky Quintessence Fruit. The Void Sky Quintessence Fruit is a special fruit that can only be cultivated in places where the 5 great heavenly void laws are incredibly rich and gathered together. Look at the leaves on this fruit tree. The 5 different colors of leaves represent the 5 different powers of the heavenly void laws. Those few martial artists who recognized the origin of the Void Sky Quintessence fruit knew that under the watchful eyes of everyone, even if others were unaware of the origin of these fruits, they wouldn't miss out on them. Therefore, they didn't intend to conceal what they knew, and one of them pointed to the dazzlingly beautiful leaves of the two fruit trees and spoke out. Another one nodded and said, "This Void Sky Quintessence fruit is much more precious than the fruits of a single heavenly void law. Under the gathering of the 5 heavenly void law powers, it has great utility for those who cultivate all the 5 great heavenly void laws at the same time. To know, cultivating any of the 5 great heavenly void laws of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth is easy, but to reach complete mastery of all 5 at the same time is something few top-level late-stage heavenly saints can achieve. To reach complete mastery of all 5 heavenly void laws not only makes one incredibly powerful, but is also said to be of great use for the future breakthrough into the heavenly saint realm, and even for cultivation in the true God realm. Who wouldn't want to master all 5 heavenly void laws at once? This time we, martial artists of the spiraling pill realm and heavenly saint realm, who had condensed the 5 great heavenly void laws and formed the 5 orifices spiraling pills, have gathered here at the 5 Elements Mountain specifically to gain a deeper understanding of the heavenly void laws, something everyone should already know. At this point, all the warriors nodded in agreement. The martial artist continued, "The Void Sky Quintessence fruit is of great utility for those who cultivate all 5 heavenly void laws at the same time because eating this fruit harmonizes the powers of the 5 heavenly void laws within the body. It prevents them from eroding each other and instead allows them to nurture each other. After consuming this Void Sky Quintessence fruit, even if one is unable to truly bring all 5 heavenly void laws to complete mastery, it will still incredibly boost the simultaneous cultivation of the 5 heavenly void laws." Many people took a deep breath at the martial artist's words. The 5 great heavenly void laws are interdependent and mutually restrictive. Cultivating several at the same time often leads to them eroding each other. So many people prefer to cultivate each heavenly void law's power separately and dare not merge them. This Void Sky Quintessence fruit, which could allow the 5 great heavenly void laws to nurture each other, was truly unbelievable. Yi-chun, having heard the incredible benefits of the Void Sky Quintessence fruit, was also full of admiration for the miraculous effects of this strange fruit. He was now cultivating the 5 great divine arts at the same time. Because the 5 elements' secret treasures that the 5 great divine arts had consumed and refined were different, they had different levels of strength. If this fruit could nourish the powers of the 5 heavenly void laws at the same time, it would be greatly beneficial for his cultivation of the 5 great divine arts. Not to mention, the fruit would also assist him much in his understanding of the 5 great heavenly void laws and his breakthrough to higher realms. With this in mind, Yi-chun eyed the few hundred fruits on the 2 large trees and felt the urge to obtain some of them. Like Yi-chun, the martial artists who had been dazzled by the peculiar appearance of these fruits shone with even greater eagerness upon learning of their remarkable uses. Such a fruit, where the powers of the 5 great heavenly void laws converged, was extremely rare. Now that it had been encountered, they would certainly not let it slip away. Everyone grew restless. Had they not been mindful of the other powerful individuals present, many would have already rushed to seize them. At this moment, the late-stage heavenly saint who had earlier laid out the treasure-hunting rules after entering the restricted ancient land, stood up. He looked directly at Yi-chan and the other 4 who had broken the prohibition. According to the rules, the 5 friends who just broke the prohibition can choose a treasure first, and then we will compete for the rest. Now that this Void Sky Quintessence fruit has been discovered, would the 5 friends like to pick one each first? Afterward, we will start picking. Upon hearing the late-stage heavenly saint's words, everyone looked towards Yi-chan and the other 4. Yi-chun also glanced at the other 4 martial artists who had broken the prohibition with him. The 4 warriors, like Yi-chun, looked at each other, but without needing any discussion, they all shook their heads. Let's not use the opportunity to find a treasure first. Let's just pick the Void Sky Quintessence fruit from these 2 trees based on our abilities. There are other areas to explore later, and there will presumably be other treasures to be found. When that time comes, We can use our priority to choose a treasure. All five had seen that in this ancient restricted land, the two large trees were only at the very outer edge. Beyond the trees was an earthen temple. They didn't believe that the treasures of this ancient restricted land would be limited to these void sky quintessence fruits. The truly precious treasures were likely inside that temple. Choosing a treasure first but only being allowed to pick one fruit would clearly waste that opportunity, so naturally, all five were reluctant. Hearing that the five were not ready to go first, the late-stage heavenly saint nodded. Then, out of these several hundred fruits, we will each pick based on our abilities. However, I would caution everyone that it is rumored where void sky quintessence fruits are found, there tends to be guardian beasts. These fruits may not be so easy to pick. If we really start, everyone should be careful. This expert from the heavenly saint realm obviously knew the true origin of the void sky quintessence fruit. Upon hearing about the existence of guardian creatures, many warriors looked around. However, in this area, apart from the two fruit trees and the earth temple farther back, there were no traces of any creatures to be seen. Moreover, Yi Chun and his four companions no longer prioritized picking the void sky quintessence fruits either. Unable to resist the temptation of the mysterious fruit embodying the power of the five great heavenly void laws, someone made the first move. The first to act was a mid-stage heavenly saint warrior from the heavenly vast continent. This warrior, a middle-aged man clad in gray, laughed heartily upon seeing that no one else was making a move. There are hundreds of these fruits, neither too few nor too many. Since none of you are taking action, then I shall make the first move. As he spoke, the mid-stage heavenly saint warrior moved through the void and disappeared from the ground in an instant. The next moment, a flash of spiritual light illuminated his hand, and a net-like magical treasure swept toward three void sky quintessence fruits on a branch of the left tree. The mid-stage heavenly saint warrior wasn't foolish. As he used the magical treasure to pluck the fruits, he enveloped himself within a surge of true chi, activating several protective treasures around him, ready to defend against any potential attacks from creatures guarding the void sky quintessence fruit. As the mid-stage heavenly saint warrior made his move, the other warriors watched him while also remaining alert to their surroundings. To everyone's surprise, however, when the warrior successfully captured the three void sky quintessence fruits in his net-like magical treasure and pulled them back without incident, there was no disturbance. Seeing his successful attempt without danger, the mid-stage heavenly saint warrior, already commanding his net-like magical treasure, reached out for more fruits. Under such circumstances, the other warriors could not hold back. Almost instantly, when the mid-stage heavenly saint warrior safely garnered his fruits, over 60 warriors among the 70 or 80 there also simultaneously made their move. Even the 8 early-stage heavenly saint warriors who came with Yi Chun reached for the void sky quintessence fruits on the tree to their right. In the field, only about 11 or 12 warriors did not make a move. Yi Chun was among them. At that moment, Yi Chun was frowning as he looked toward the small earth temple behind the two fruit trees. Due to the unique nature of this restricted ancient space, his divine consciousness was blocked and unable to probe inside the small earth temple. However, within his divine artifact, the ice snow jade pendant, there were 9 great ice guardians present. Previously, the 9 ice guardians had not sensed anything unusual here, but the moment the mid-stage heavenly saint warrior had plucked the 3 void sky quintessence fruits, Bing Shi from the ice snow jade pendant abruptly alerted Yi Chun. Master Yi Chun, there is likely something formidable inside that small earth temple. Just now, for an instant, I even felt a power that made even my soul tremble leaking from that temple. I'm uncertain whether it's the power of a treasure or that of a mighty being, as I cannot perceive it clearly. Bing Shi is the leader of the 9 Ice Guardians and a top powerhouse in the late stage of the Heavenly Saint realm. A power that could make even him feel a tingling in the soul? Bing Shi's words made Yi Chun's heart skip a beat. Without knowing what was generating this power, Yi Chun naturally wouldn't act rashly. Yi Chun's gaze even swept toward the exit behind the steps below, ready to leave at any sign of trouble. Yi Chun stayed still because of Bing Shi's warning, and the remaining 11 who had not reached out to directly pluck the Void Sky Quintessence fruits were being extremely cautious warriors. Even though the mid-stage Heavenly Saint warrior had successfully picked the fruits without encountering danger, they all still planned to watch a bit longer. There were hundreds of fruits on those 2 trees, and they could not be picked clean in an instant. Even if all the fruits were taken, with their strength, they were confident that they could acquire a few from others. While Yi Chun was on high alert inside, and the other 11 warriors were still observing, and while over 60 warriors had already flown up to the 2 trees, vying and picking the Void Sky Quintessence fruits, a sudden, earth-shattering buzzing sound erupted from the seemingly calm small earth temple behind the trees. This buzzing sound was piercing and incredibly shrill. As the sound reached the ears of the warriors outside, they all saw thousands of fist-sized golden demonic bees bursting out of the small earth temple. These thousands of golden demonic bees formed a vast, brilliant cloud of creatures, which instantly enveloped the entire space outside. The bees madly attacked not only the 60-plus warriors who were picking the Void Sky Quintessence fruits from the trees, but also swarmed towards Yi Chun and others who had not yet taken action, assaulting them in an instant. Just sensing the power emitted by a single golden demonic bee made Yi Chen's hairs stand on end, as the power of each golden bee was indeed at the late stage of the Heavenly Saint realm. And in the field, there were thousands of such golden demonic bees. The combined might of thousands of golden demonic bees, each at the late Heavenly Saint realm, was a force so fearsome it could shake the heavens and the earth. This cloud of golden demonic bees enveloped Yi Chun and all the other horrified warriors, and in the next moment, all were swept up into the glimmering swarm. Chapter 431, Golden Demon Bee. Buzzing noises filled the air, ear-piercingly shrill, echoing in all directions. Yi Chun and over 70 other martial artists were utterly astounded as they watched the sky-high swarms of golden demon bees completely shrouding the world around them. Golden demon bees of the late Heavenly Saint stage. Moreover, there were thousands of demon bees of this caliber. Even if they had anticipated that guardian creatures might exist around the Void Sky Quintessence fruit, no one had imagined the sheer number and level of such creatures. Such a horde, let alone the majority of martial artists present who were at the early or middle Heavenly Saint stage, even the formidable entities in the late Heavenly Saint stage could very likely meet their demise under the assault of this swarm of golden demon bees. The situation at hand left no time for the martial artists to think further. After enveloping everyone in the sky-darkening swarm, all the golden demon bees launched an attack on the more than 70 martial artists. Pluck, pluck, pluck. Each demon bee shot a slender, gleaming stinger from its tail directly at the closest martial artist. Though only the size of a fist, these bees were late Heavenly Saint stage creatures. The 2-inch-long gleaming stingers, as soon as they aimed at the martial artists in the field, pierced through many late Heavenly Saint martial artists' defenses that had erupted instantly, not to mention those below the late Heavenly Saint stage. Almost all martial artists below the late Heavenly Saint stage couldn't withstand the onslaught of the golden demon bees and were struck by the stingers instantly. Each martial artist hit by the stingers had at least 30 to 40 stingers buried in their bodies. 2 late Heavenly Saint entities even had over 100 stingers embedded in them. Then, something terrible happened. The martial artists struck by the stingers, be it rotating Pill Realm or early, middle, or late Heavenly Saint stage, all exuded billowing black chi from their flesh. Their bodies visibly disintegrated at a rapid pace, and in merely a few breaths, the martial artists' entire physical bodies and even their skeletons completely turned into black smoke, evaporating into nothingness. Even the divine souls that had just emerged after the physical bodies were destroyed were directly obliterated, vanishing without a trace. These martial artists were all instantly slain right on the spot. Out of over 70 martial artists, more than 60 were killed instantly, leaving only 8 survivors in this entire world. Witnessing the grisly deaths of their fellow martial artists, the surviving 8 couldn't help but inhale sharply. They clearly realized that the stingers of these golden demon bees carried an unimaginable toxicity and killing power. At this moment, the swarm of thousands of golden demon bees, having just claimed the lives of over 60 martial artists amidst deafening, buzzing sounds, retracted their stingers back into their abdomens. And then, this horde of late Heavenly Saint stage bees furiously circled and rushed towards the surviving 8 for another round of frenzied assault, launching the second wave of attack. Among the survivors, 6 were late Heavenly Saint martial artists, 1 was at the middle Heavenly Saint level, and 1 was at the early stage of the rotating pill realm. The survivor of the rotating pill realm was none other than Yi Chen. The instant a large faction of the bee swarm attacked Yi Chen for the first time, his mind flashed with countless methods of resistance. The 9 frozen guardians within his ice snow jade medallion couldn't wait to come out and assist Yi Chen, and at the same time, they informed Yi Chen of the strength of these demon bees. These late Heavenly Saint stage bees each possessed a combat power that was incredibly close to Bing Shurjiu. The group of over 80 golden demon bees flying towards Yi Chen probably had a combined strength that could only be resisted by Bing Shi, Bing Shire, and Bing Shursan, the powerful members of the Frozen Guardians. In such a situation, Yi Chen had no time for hesitation. He immediately summoned the Chi Snake War Beast, Bing Shursan, to protect him at his side. At the same time, with a thought from Yi Chen, his newly refined defensive divine artifact, the Purple Mist True Garment, flashed into existence on the outside of his clothing. The Purple Mist True Garment could defend against the killing power and martial skills of the Heavenly Saint level. Yi Chen had already seen that the attack of these golden demon bees wasn't aimed at the soul. The Purple Mist True Garment was obviously capable of countering the bees' lethal power. Boom! 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 The Chi Snake War Beast Bing Shursan, spanning over 800 zhang in length, emerged and, in a bid to protect Yi Chen, unleashed its powerful late Heavenly Saint techniques. Bing Shursan's massive head violently expelled a breath towards the void, and a burst of 7-colored Danxia Cloud Qi instantly shattered the entire void. The more than 80 golden demon bees rolling towards Yi Chen were wrapped up in this Danxia Cloud Qi. Then, the Danxia Cloud Qi generated a thunderous sound of purple lightning and thunder, which in the midst of resounding destruction, completely disintegrated every single one of the golden demon bees. While Bing Shursan launched its attack at the golden demon bees, Yi Chen looked up and saw that many people had already perished under the attack of other bee swarms at this moment, and he further noticed several powerful martial artists unleashing all their techniques, engaging in a life-and-death struggle with the swarms assaulting them. At this moment, Yi Chen's figure moved instantaneously, and as the Purple Mist True Garment enveloped his entire body, his large hand covered by the Purple Mist True Garment reached out directly toward a gold-colored demon bee nearby. Yi Chen wanted to test whether the Purple Mist True Garment could truly withstand the sting of the demon bee's needle. Despite the protection of the Purple Mist True Garment, Yi Chen still circulated a magical treasure in his large hand beneath its cover, which was none other than his life-bound flying sword, Qihua. In the past 10 or so days since obtaining the Void Sky Sword embryo, Yi Chen had been using it to nurture his life-bound flying sword Qihua. Although the life-bound flying sword Qihua had not been fully restored, it was already usable once again. The flying sword Qihua was an exquisite sacred artifact. If the Purple Mist True Garment really couldn't withstand the sting of the bee needle, Yi Chen was prepared to use the exquisite sacred artifact, the flying sword Qihua, to shred the piercing bee needle immediately to prevent its deadly poison from entering his body. The gold-colored demon bee seemed to be quite intelligent. It saw that an astonishing war beast had suddenly appeared beside Yi Chen, which had wiped out all 80 or so gold-colored demon bees that had been attacking him. And yet, this young man, Yi Chen, dared to free a hand to attack it, prompting the gold-colored demon bee to try to turn and evade. However, its reaction was ultimately not as swift as Yi Chen's direct action. At this point, Yi Chen's large hand, covered by the purple mist of the Purple Mist True Garment, had already reached the top of the gold-colored demon bee's head. In such a situation, the gold-colored demon bee could no longer evade. When it could not escape, the demon bee let out a sharp screech, and its stinger on its tail immediately aimed a sting at Yi Chen. Yi Chen also held his breath, completely taut at this moment. The Purple Mist True Garment was a defensive divine artifact, and although Yi Chen speculated that it could block the sting of the bee needle, he couldn't be at ease without a true test. And now was the time to truly verify the defense of the purple mist true garment. Thud! In an instant, the bee needle of the gold-colored demon bee had already made contact with the purple vapor of the purple mist true garment, atop Yi Chen's large hand. To Yi Chen's delight, the defensive divine artifact, purple mist true garment, really could defend against the sting of the bee needle. As soon as the demon bee's needle touched the purple mist true garment, it was immediately enveloped in an extremely soft embrace, which was precisely the wrapping of the purple mist from the purple mist true garment. While the purple mist wrapped around the bee needle, flashes of divine light flickered on the purple mist true garment, instantly obliterating the bee needle that could penetrate the defenses of many late-stage Heavenly Saint martial artists. Seeing the remarkable effect of the purple mist true garment, Yi Chen was overjoyed. The bee needle was the gold-colored demon bee's lethal move. Now that the needle had been obliterated, Yi Chen wouldn't let this opportunity slip away. As his large hand grasped at the demon bee, black flames from the fire-type divine art, heaven-devouring true fire, surged out, directly enveloping the gold-colored demon bee in the flames instantaneously. Without the bee needle retracted into its body, the gold-colored demon bee was at its most vulnerable. Its individual strength was weaker than the weakest of the 9 frozen guards, Bing Shurjiu, and it possessed ordinary combat power for the late-stage Heavenly Saint. Caught off guard by the sudden onslaught of the heaven-devouring true fire, the gold-colored demon bee was engulfed by the flames and ultimately burned to death. Yi Chen, through his own combat strength and the cooperation of the purple mist true garment, had also slain a gold-colored demon bee. Just as Yi Chen had killed this gold-colored demon bee and Bing Shursan had helped him kill the remaining 80 or so demon bees, the other demon bees had just finished killing over 60 martial artists and launched their second attack. The second wave of gold-colored demon bees attacking Yi Chen exceeded 500 in number. Having established that the purple mist true garment could defend against the most terrifying sting of the gold-colored demon bee, Yi Chen felt some confidence. Seeing the demon bees launch their second wave of attacks, he couldn't afford to look at the remaining surviving martial artists. He called out to Bing Shursan while simultaneously launching another attack on the swarm of demon bees. The Chi Snake war beast Bing Shursan and Yi Chen engaged directly with the over 500 gold-colored demon bees in battle once again. The Chi Snake war beast vastly surpassed these gold-colored demon bees in strength. Even with over 500 accumulated demon bees, it wasn't afraid of their combined efforts, continuously watching over Yi Chen while spurting bursts of 7-colored Danxia cloud chi. One after another, the demon bees died amid the clashes with Yi Chen and Bing Shursan. On one side, Yi Chen continued to resist the second wave of the gold-colored demon bees' attack. Of the 7 other surviving martial artists, 2 were unable to withstand the even denser second wave of gold-colored demon bees and perished instantly, just like the 60 or so martial artists before them. The remaining 5 martial artists, 4 in the late stage of Heavenly Saint and 1 in the middle stage, no longer hid their combat strength and unleashed all their powerful trump cards. The middle stage Heavenly Saint martial artist's body shone with a bright green belt, which boosted his combat strength under its glow, astonishingly reaching the top tier of the late-stage Heavenly Saint. At the same time, this middle-stage Heavenly Saint martial artist took out a green basket, which began to rotate upon its appearance, creating a tremendous suction force that continuously drew in the demon bees, attacking him into the basket. As soon as the demon bees were sucked into the green basket, they issued harrowing screeches, and then there were no more sounds. The situation suggested that all those demon bees had been killed by the green basket. This green basket in the hands of the middle stage Heavenly Saint martial artist was clearly an outstanding and mighty treasure. Chapter 432, Three-Eyed Skull. Additionally, for late-stage Heavenly Saints also engaged in a fierce battle with the vast swarm of golden demon bees. A late-stage Heavenly Saint with white eyebrows and a yellow robe burst into the void, his body's true chi blazing furiously, actually emitting divine might akin to high-grade true fire of a saintly level. Every cluster of true chi that leaped forth incinerated a swarm of golden demon bees attacking him into ash, and although there were more than 800 bees encircling him, not a single one could breach his defense beneath the intense blaze of true chi, akin to superior true fire. Looking at the situation, it was only a matter of time before the white-browed and yellow-robed elder would annihilate all of the golden demon bees. There was another late-stage heavenly saint who was likewise extraordinarily powerful. This late-stage heavenly saint was none other than the one who first greeted and spoke to Yi Chun when he arrived at the forbidden ancient lands, also emphasizing the rules of treasure hunting in the ancient land. Initially, this heavenly saint only emanated an ordinary late-stage heavenly saint aura, but now, as his aura fully blossomed, he was not a bit weaker than Bing Shirsan. His combat skills were known for physical combat power, and when his aura was fully unleashed, patterns of divine flesh emerged over his body beneath the gray clothes. Amidst the surge of divine flesh patterns, the late-stage heavenly saint bellowed continuously, fearlessly plunging into the swarm of golden demon bees, their toxic and lethal stings notwithstanding. He crushed every single one of the bees with his bare hands. Another late-stage heavenly saint, similar to the mid-stage heavenly saint youth with the cyan basket, also summoned a powerful magical treasure of his creation. His magical treasure was a painting. When this late-stage heavenly saint unfolded the painting, flock after flock of earthy yellow sparrows flew out, flickering with spiritual light as if they were no different from living creatures. Moreover, each and every sparrow was at the combat level of a late-stage heavenly saint, their power surpassing the golden demon bees attacking the heavenly saint. The sky full of sparrows emerging from the painting was no less numerous than the golden demon bees. Amidst their fluttering, they directly swooped down on the golden demon bees to annihilate them. The farthest late-stage heavenly saint simply sat cross-legged in the void, motionless, but above his seated physical body suddenly appeared a small silhouette resembling himself. This silhouette was none other than the divine soul shadow of the late-stage heavenly saint. This heavenly saint evidently practiced in powerful divine soul attack methods. As soon as the small divine soul shadow above his head appeared, his eyes shot forth beams of sky-shocking brilliance. Each beam, as long as it hit the golden demon bees attacking him, instantly annihilated them into nothingness. In the midst of battle, the 6 survivors who held out until the end all displayed their true formidable combat strength. Yi Chun had the support of his combat beast Bing Shirsan, the purple mist true garment, and the 5 great divine arts. The mid-stage heavenly saint youth had the mysterious cyan belt and cyan basket, and the other 4 late-stage heavenly saints each wielded true chi combat power, physical combat power, sky-shocking magical treasure, and incredible divine soul attack methods. All 6 withstood an even denser second wave of attacks from the golden demon bees, and as the battle progressed, the number of bees in the attacking swarm dwindled, growing fewer and fewer. At this rate, the 6 of them would certainly annihilate all of the golden demon bees. Although the 6 had gained the upper hand, not a trace of relaxation appeared on their faces. Out of the 70 or so adventurers who came to these forbidden ancient lands, merely attempting to harvest the void sky quintessence fruits under the 2 large trees had resulted in the fall of the overwhelming majority, leaving only the 6 of them alive. Moreover, it was clear that the swarm of golden demon bees wasn't solely targeting those harvesting the void sky quintessence fruit. Even those who stood below without engaging in the fight, including Yi Chun and others, were attacked by the swarm of golden demon bees. Such a situation made the 6 aware that these golden demon bees, which flew out from the small clay temple behind the 2 fruit trees, were not as simple as guardians of the void sky quintessence fruit. It's very possible that something even more dangerous existed here, and Yi Chun, who was continuously annihilating the golden demon bees, was even more vigilant. He remembered that Bing Shi had told him that a power that even made Bing Shi's soul tremble was seeping out from that small clay temple. That power, it definitely wouldn't be just these demon bees which even Bing Shirsan could withstand. There had to be something even more powerful hidden within that small clay temple. Under such circumstances, the 6 had no intention of lingering in this bizarre place and planned in their hearts that once they wiped out these golden demon bees and were free, they would immediately leave this area. Their survival up to the last moment was not only due to their incredibly strong means and trump cards but also a result of their extremely cautious and careful hearts. From the moment the golden demon bees launched their second wave of attack, they knew that this was no place to stay for long. Among the six, the late-stage heavenly saint who unleashed true chi as fierce as true fire was the first to be free. After killing more than 400 golden demon bees, he didn't bother with the other 300 plus still attacking him, and he burst directly towards the exit below the staircase. As a result, something startled all six of them occurred. When this late-stage heavenly saint existence flew to the verge of that spatial gap and was about to escape from the outlet, leaving this forbidden ancient lands, the Tenjong-wide spatial gap outlet that had been revealed by Yi Chan and his 5 companions' breaking of the seal, suddenly closed in an instant. The entire secret space within the forbidden ancient lands, now completely separated from the outside space. Yi Chan and his 6 companions were completely trapped inside the secret space of the forbidden ancient lands. They could no longer find an exit to leave. Such a situation not only caused the complexion of the late-stage heavenly saint, who was flying towards the outlet, to drastically change, but also caused the other 5 people who had been paying attention to the surroundings and silently observing the movements of the heavenly saint, to feel a sinking feeling in the depths of their hearts. Although it was said that this was a secret space within the forbidden ancient lands, there certainly was a way out, but now that the spatial gap had disappeared, leaving would not be so simple. They might have to completely understand this inner space. Under such circumstances, it seemed impossible to avoid the crises within this inner space. All 6 of them had grim expressions on their faces, but what happened next caused their hearts to sink even further. Right at the moment when the spatial gap was closing, from the small earthen temple behind the 2 fruit trees bearing void sky quintessence fruit, suddenly came a series of jarring, cold laughter. The instant this cold laughter was heard, those gold needle bees that were still attacking towards the 6 people, all flew backwards, returning to the small earthen temple. Looking at this, these gold needle bees of the late-stage heavenly saint level were obviously being controlled by someone. Could the gold needle bees, which instantaneously killed more than 60 martial artists, actually be under someone's control? Was there still a living person within the small earthen temple behind the 2 fruit trees? Thinking of this, the hair on the skin of Yi Chan and his companions stood on end. You have to know, these forbidden ancient lands had just been breached by them. How could there possibly be someone inside? The 5 Elements Mountain, that's a place fraught with extreme danger. Each exploration lasts only 3 months, and after the 3-month exploration period, a ferocious void hurricane will sweep through the entire 5 Elements Mountain, a hurricane capable of killing all mighty beings. Even a first tribulation true god could not withstand such a void hurricane. In such a case, other than the 3 months of exploration, it would be impossible for any martial artist to stay in the 5 Elements Mountain at other times. And the human voice coming from the small earthen temple, it couldn't possibly be someone from the current group of people who had just entered the 5 Elements Mountain. If it is not a newly arrived explorer, and other martial artists couldn't have stayed in the 5 Elements Mountain before this exploration, then who could be laughing coldly in that small earthen temple? Could it not be a human being? If it isn't a human, yet it emits a cold laugh like a person, what else could it be? This eerie situation made even the 6 strong warriors who had survived to the end feel a chill running down their spines. At this moment, Yi Chan was thinking even more of Bing Shi's words. Could this entity emitting the jarring laughter be the source of the power that even Bing Shi was afraid of? Yi Chan and his 5 companions were all staring intently at the entrance of the small earthen temple, completely unaware of what might emerge from it in the next moment. And at this time, after the jarring cold laugh ceased, a harsh voice that terrified all 6 people followed. "TSK, TSK. I didn't expect that of the more than 70 adventurers who came this time. There were still 6 decent martial artists who managed to dodge the attack of my gold needle bees. Not bad at all." As this raspy voice sounded, a figure directly walked out from the earthen temple. The gaze of Yi Chan and his 5 companions instantly fell upon this figure. This look made all 6 of them jump in their hearts. If this figure is to be called a person, it's definitely not human, but to call it a monster is also incorrect. The figure that walked out from the small earthen temple is actually a white skeleton with all flesh gone, only the white bones remaining. What caught Yi Chen's attention even more was that between the eyebrows of this white skeleton's skull, there was a socket-like hole the size of an eye socket, out of which was emitting a greenish glow, much like that of an eyeball. With the glow also coming from the original 2 eye sockets of the skeleton, this skeleton seemed to have 3 eyes. A 3-eyed skeleton. Yi-chun had never seen such an entity before that could speak and even command gold needle bees of the late-stage heavenly saint level. And the next sentence spoken by this 3-eyed skeleton confused Yi-chun and the other 5 martial artists even more. After its 3 glowing eyes briefly scanned over Yi-chun and his 5 companions, it directly asked them, "In this batch of adventurers who entered the 5 Elements Mountain this time, is there the saint heir of the Shenjin continent, Jin Liang?" Chapter 433, Bloodkill. Yi-chun and the other 5 had never expected the 3-eyed skeleton to inquire about Jin Liang. Could it be that the 3-eyed skeleton within this mysterious forbidden ancient land had some connection with Jin Liang? Who exactly are you, and why have you deceived us into coming here and slaughtered so many of our comrades? At this moment, the heavenly saint in the late stage, who was known for his physical combat skills and had previously conversed with Yi-chun, ignored the 3-eyed skeleton's sudden question and directly confronted it with a challenge. "Slaughter them." The 3-eyed skeleton let out a cold laugh. The 5 Elements Mountain is a place for exploration, and death is normal in such places. Even if they did not die by my hand, they would have perished somewhere else sooner or later. Isn't it better if I send them on their way earlier? The mocking words of the 3-eyed skeleton made the expressions of Yi-chun and the other 4 even uglier. At that moment, the heavenly saint in the late stage, who had previously unleashed a powerful divine soul attack against the Golden Needle Bee swarm, took advantage of the moment the 3-eyed skeleton was speaking. His still manifested divine soul shadow suddenly opened its eyes wide at the 3-eyed skeleton, and 5 terrifying beams of light shot toward it instantly. Clearly, this late-stage heavenly saint saw the ruthless heart of the 3-eyed skeleton and wanted to take the initiative to kill it. The instant this late-stage heavenly saint made his move, Yi-chun and the others unleashed their full strength without any coordination. Anyone could tell that this 3-eyed skeleton, which had relied on the Golden Needle Bee swarm to annihilate over 60 warriors and had mysteriously appeared in this forbidden land, harbored malicious intent towards them. Otherwise, it would not have specifically lured them here and killed so many. Seeing that the late-stage heavenly saint was the first to act, the rest had no intention of giving the 3-eyed skeleton any chance to catch a breath and immediately employed their respective techniques. Facing such a strange creature, it was essential to strike first and gain the upper hand. As the 5 terrifying beams of light from the heavenly saint's divine soul attack reached right in front of the 3-eyed skeleton, the old man in the late stage of heavenly saint, with white eyebrows and yellow clothes, also shot toward the 3-eyed skeleton. His surging true chi burned even more intensely, causing the entire void to boil over with the brightness of the true chi flames. The late-stage heavenly saint warrior, known for his immense physical combat skills, also approached the 3-eyed skeleton rapidly, reaching out directly to grab at the skeleton's skull. Even the mid-stage heavenly saint youth and the late-stage heavenly saint who had summoned a painted talisman artifact used their powerful treasures. In an instant, the blue basket artifact emitted a hazy light that swept toward the 3-eyed skeleton, and the myriad of gray sparrows that had previously attacked the Golden Needle Bee swarm now lunged at the 3-eyed skeleton. The energy converging on the 3-eyed skeleton was filled with endless killing intent. Now that the other 5 had made their move, Yi-chun was no exception. Immediately, Yi-chun commanded Bing Shirsan to take action, and all of his 5 great divine arts were unleashed simultaneously. The majestic power of the 5 great divine arts formed a terrifying convulsion of annihilation, which flashed across the void and struck near the 3-eyed skeleton. Being able to survive an assault by thousands of late-stage heavenly saint-level demon bees. Each of the 6 possessed powerful fighting capabilities and trump cards. All 6 attacks converging at once were so fearsome that even the top late-stage heavenly saints would have suffered greatly under such an onslaught. However, to the dismay of the 6, at the moment their attacks arrived instantaneously, the voice of the 3-eyed skeleton rang out again. "So, you've all unanimously taken the initiative to attack? Truly worthy of being the 6 individuals who survived the attack of the Golden Needle Bee swarm. I originally wanted to ask you a few more things before eliminating all of you, but now it seems I will have to make the first move. No matter, Once I kill you, I can perform a soul search on your dissipating divine souls to find out what I need to know. Amidst the voice of the three-eyed skeleton, it astonishingly disappeared from the midst of the endless attacks. In the next moment, everyone saw 6 white shadows suddenly appear beside each person. One white shadow flashed past the late-stage heavenly saint, who had been inciting towering true fire flames, and with puff, puff, puff sounds, the heavenly saint, with his overwhelming true chi burning like true fire, was instantly pierced through the chest by 3 large holes. Another shadow flashed in front of the late-stage heavenly saint who had summoned the myriad gray sparrows, and similarly, the puff, puff, puff sounds were heard. That late-stage heavenly saint also had 3 large holes pierced through his chest. Even the late-stage heavenly saint, who had been far away from the three-eyed skeleton when he launched his divine soul attack, was suddenly struck in the chest by a white shadow that appeared before him. In an instant, the 3 late-stage heavenly saints who had survived the ordeal of the Golden Needle Bee swarm were killed on the spot. The remaining 3 were also subjected to the terrifying attacks of the white shadows. Yichun felt a flash of light near him, and just as he heard a cry of alarm from Bing Shirsan and the 8 other ice guards within the ice snow jade pendant, he saw a white skeletal claw reach out for his chest. In an instant, Yichun almost subconsciously burst backward, feeling the white skeleton's claws strike violently at his chest, unleashing 3 deadly talon attacks. If he had not been constantly on guard against the three-eyed skeleton, even while deploying his offensive moves without completely lowering his guard, and if he had not fully activated the defense of the purple mist true garment, which ultimately resisted the 3 talon strikes of the white skeleton's claws, it's very likely that Yichun would have died on the spot from this single move. As Yichun's heart skipped a beat and he held the flying sword and the true god talisman in his palms, looking towards the others, he saw directly 3 corpses of late-stage heavenly saints lying dead on the ground, their chests pierced with 3 gaping holes each. He also saw the pale face of a late-stage heavenly saint who, like him, had burst backward with exceptional physical combat skills, and a middle-stage heavenly saint youth who wielded a cyan basket treasure. The three-eyed skeleton had, despite their preemptive strike, struck later but arrived faster, directly killing 3 of the 6 warriors. The sight of the 6 white shadows that had instantly appeared beside them and the 3 deadly talon moves that could penetrate the defenses of a late-stage heavenly saint had completely terrified the 3 survivors, including Yichun. The 3 had an epiphany, realizing that the seemingly casual move from the three-eyed skeleton approached the terrifying level of the Void Sky True God. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for a single move to kill 3 powerful late-stage heavenly saints and nearly cause the demise of 3 more. Out of the more than 70 martial artists who had come to this forbidden ancient land in search of treasures, now, only the 3 including Yichun remained alive after the continuous slaughter, and whether they could continue to survive was still unknown. As the 3 of them barely escaped a nearly certain death and burst backward in utter shock, the 6 white shadows instantly returned to the three-eyed skeleton, merging back into its white bony body. On the claws of the white skeleton, the fresh blood of the 3 recent casualties of the late-stage heavenly saints still clung. Blood dripping from the bone claws presented a blood-chilling spectacle. Only 3 managed to survive? The three-eyed skeleton, having killed 3 late-stage heavenly saints with a single move, looked interestedly towards the 3 survivors, including Yichun, its 3 eyes emitting a green ghostly light without the slightest flicker of emotion. 1 late-stage heavenly saint, 1 middle-stage heavenly saint, and 1 is actually at the initial stage of the spinning Dan? The gaze of the three-eyed skeleton swept over the faces of the survivors, finally settling on Yichun. Being stared at by the three-eyed skeleton, Yichun had already concentrated his mind to the utmost. This situation was by far the most dangerous he had ever encountered. Even now, he had not been able to grasp the true depth of the three-eyed skeleton's abilities, which even Bing Shi had feared. Yichun was prepared for a fight to the death with the three-eyed skeleton. After watching Yichun for a while, the three-eyed skeleton then turned its gaze to the late stage and the middle stage heavenly saint youths, eventually letting out a chilling laugh. Having survived my initial move, I had thought of sparing you. However, I have finally regained some of my strength and have important matters to attend to. Your corpses will be of some use to me. Besides, what happened here must not be leaked. Therefore, you still have to die. Whoosh! The moment the words of the three-eyed skeleton fell, he disappeared again from the scene, and in the next instant, he was already beside the late-stage heavenly saint with extraordinary physical combat prowess. As the three-eyed skeleton arrived beside the late-stage heavenly saint, the third eye on its forehead instantly unleashed a peerless crystal white light. This crystal white light, unlike anything from the 5 elements of the 33 continents, was something even the formidable body of the late-stage heavenly saint could not withstand. He was instantly killed on the spot. As the late-stage heavenly saint was dying, he screamed in horror, "The power of a true God! This is the true God's power!" He had only time to utter these words before he died on the scene. Chapter 434. Decisive Battle to the Death. True God's Power. The words of the dying late-stage celestial saint had completely terrified another mid-stage celestial saint young man. And in the next moment, the spot where the three-eyed skeleton appeared in an instant was right before this mid-stage celestial saint youth. Similarly, from the third eye, a peerless crystal white light burst forth, and the youth, who possessed a formidable green basket magical treasure and a green belt magical treasure, could no longer withstand the entity unleashing the full might of a true god, the three-eyed skeleton, and was struck dead by the radiant divine light. The only one left in the arena was Yi Chun. Yi Chun hadn't expected the three-eyed skeleton to strike with such speed, killing 2 people in the blink of an eye. As the physically strong late-stage celestial saint uttered, "True God's power," from within Yi Chun's ice snow jade medallion, Bing Shi also called out to Yi Chun, "True God's power, Lord Yi Chun. This three-eyed skeleton is a void sky true god." Bing Shi immediately deduced, he is not just a common void sky true god. His peak strength has likely reached that of a 4 tribulations true god. Lord Yi Chun, your 2 true god talismans were crafted by the 5 tribulations true phoenix and the 3 tribulations Mulan. If true phoenix herself were here, she would certainly be able to slay this foe. But with only 2 talismans, the greatest power they can exert is that of a 3 tribulations true god. Even if this three-eyed skeleton isn't at its peak strength, it's very possible that it would still be unmatched. Under such circumstances, only if all of us guardians fight to the death against it, coupled with the 2 talismans, might there be a chance to survive this dire situation. In the instant Bing Shi spoke, it could no longer wait for Yi Chen's command. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Bing Shi, leading the other 7 guardians, along with the already present Bing Shirsan, all positioned themselves in front of Yi Chun. In this life-and-death crisis, all 9 frigid guardians mobilized. To fulfill their promise to the deputy lord of the minor spirit realm, they were determined to protect Yi Chun until the very last moment. Hearing Bing Shi's words and seeing the 9 frigid guardians standing in front of him, Yi Chun also took a deep breath. He hadn't anticipated facing such a situation. This was only the 2nd mountain, and yet here, in the heart of it, they encountered a 4 tribulations true god. No wonder this person could remain fearless within the ancient forbidden lands, unaffected by the spatial tempests capable of slaying even a 1 tribulation true god. His strength had actually reached the level of a 4 tribulations true god. Not only had Yi Chun not considered this possibility, but likely none of the numerous adventurers who came to the 5 Elements Mountain, including the peak existences of the various continents who organized these excursions, had anticipated such a being within the 5 Elements Mountain either. If they truly knew, Palace Master Yuan Li would not have allowed Yi Chun to take this risk. If they truly knew, Jiang Yao would have done more than just procure True Phoenix and Mulan's True God talismans for Yi Chun. If Yi Chun had been adamant about going to the 5 Elements Mountain, Jiang Yao would certainly have arranged for True Phoenix herself to protect Yi Chun. But now, it was a situation that couldn't be solved simply because it wasn't expected. Unexpected events are inevitable on the path of a martial artist's cultivation. Even the most comprehensive preparations can never address everything. After taking a deep breath, Yi Chun, whose mind had cleared considerably upon seeing the corpse of the mid-stage celestial saint youth, knew more than ever what needed to be done. Previously, he had been somewhat shocked. But now, faced with this truly unsolvable life and death crisis, Yi Chen's mind was clearer than ever, and he knew exactly what he had to do. If that's the case, then let's fight with all we've got. Boom! Without any hesitation, Yi Chen began to burn the talisman given to him by True Phoenix. As the talisman burned, an astonishing true god-level power began to surge towards Yi Chen, and with the blessing of true god-level power, Yi Chen soared into the sky, flying in front of the 9 frigid guardians. The 9 frigid guardians had sworn to protect him with their lives, so how could he hide behind them? Even in a battle to the death, he would fight alongside them. Right as Yi Chen's true god talisman burned and the divine power erupted, the 3-eyed skeleton had just slain the mid-stage celestial saint youth. Feeling the overwhelming true god's power unleashed from Yi Chen and seeing the 9 frigid guardians suddenly beside Yi Chen, the 3-eyed skeleton also looked at Yi Chen in unexpected interest. Young lad, indeed, you have made me take another look. Previously, with your early-stage revolving core realm, surviving the attack from gold needle bees and myself already piqued my interest. And now, you carry with you 9 helpers at the level of late-stage celestial saints. The gaze of the 3-eyed skeleton swept over the 9 frigid guardians, finally resting on the massive form of the snowy great rock Bingxi. These behemoths do not seem to be from the 33 continents, nor even from the minor spirit realm. I have never seen such creatures. Young lad, from where did you obtain these beasts? Furthermore, you actually possess True God Talisman of Void Sky True God level that can provide you with True God's power? Judging by the level of this True God's power, the one who crafted your True God Talisman must be at least a 5 tribulations True God. Young lad, you really have so many secrets. By the end, the look in the 3-eyed skeleton's eyes had turned sharp. There's no need for so much talk. Yi Chen's voice had become utterly calm. Since you want to kill us all, then make your move. Boom! 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 As Yi Chen spoke, the 369 5-aperture revolving pills in his sea of qi, which he had been cultivating recently, all began to vibrate. The boundless power of his true qi began to rise around his body, reinforcing the vast true God's power. Seeing Yi Chen's actions and hearing his words, the 3-eyed skeleton let out a rare and hearty laugh. Good! A young man with such decisiveness. If it were not for the blood vengeance I carry, this time, I would have let you go. But the stronger you are, the less I can afford to let you go, for the sake of my vengeance. I need to refine 3 body avatars, and your body will definitely make an excellent main avatar. Though I am not completely certain I can kill you, if I can't even take you down, how am I to kill that beast? Therefore, use yourself to test the extent of my current strength recovery. While the 3-eyed skeleton spoke, it released all its strength for the first time at once. Its power was all at true God level. Once this force was released, the 5 elements law within the forbidden ground space all shattered and merged into the spanning divine power of the 3-eyed skeleton. On one side was the 3-eyed skeleton, completely unleashing its power and wildly gathering true God's power. On the other side, Yi Chen was also fully unleashing all his power, with both the power of the 5-aperture revolving pills and the true God talisman sweeping through the skies. And the 9 great ice-sealed guardians beside Yi Chen were also enhancing all their combat power. The next moment, the 3-eyed skeleton, Yi Chen, and the 9 great ice-sealed guardians instantly flashed and directly clashed in the void. This 3-eyed skeleton was of the Void Sky True God level. Even the strongest among the 9 great ice-sealed guardians, Bingxi, could not withstand it, so naturally, Yi Chen wouldn't let the 9 guardians take the brunt of it. He alone took on 90% of the 3-eyed skeleton's attacks. The 9 great ice-sealed guardians also ignited their full combat power and launched their strongest attacks beside Yi Chen. The entire heaven and earth seemed to be on the verge of tearing apart. Were it not for this forbidden land being as mysterious as the 5 Elements mountain itself, it is likely this astonishing battle would have directly destroyed this entire forbidden land. In the void, Yi Chen, who had clashed instantly with the 3-eyed skeleton, was a 4 tribulations true god whose strength had been somewhat diminished, whereas the three-eyed skeleton, with a true god talisman crafted by a 5 tribulations true god, had a combat power equivalent to a 3 tribulations true god, so no superiority had been established between the two. As the battle unfolded, both Yi Chun and the three-eyed skeleton, as well as the 9 great ice-sealed guardians, kept getting injured. But the more they were injured, the more intense the battle became. Towards the end, the three-eyed skeleton, which suddenly pulled back, had even begun to accumulate a golden killing divine light in its third eye, never used before. Yi Chun, on the other hand, was no longer holding back at all. He knew the true god talisman, even if refined by a 5 tribulations true god, true phoenix, couldn't provide an endless supply of combat power. He had to kill the three-eyed skeleton while he still could reinforce his power. In terms of combat skill, Yi Chun's 5 great divine arts were not yet perfected, and he certainly couldn't compare with the battle techniques of true god-level three-eyed skeleton. But Yi Chun had many divine arts and strategies. Toward the end, Yi Chun even took out his still-recovering personal flying sword, Crimson Fire, not only utilizing all 5 great divine arts of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, but on the other hand, he also began to enhance his Crimson Fire with the 3rd layer sword technique's divine art from the North Dark Secret Tome, the Great 5 Elements Sword Light. As he prepared to launch the Great 5 Elements Sword Light, he was also ready to damage his personal flying sword once more. Both sides unleashed their combat power to its limits, and the next contact would be earth-shattering. It could even result in a life-and-death confrontation. And in this moment, the three-eyed skeleton, with a golden killing divine light gathered in its third eye, had already conceived the final deadly thought to kill Yi Chun. As this thought crossed its mind, it gave Yi Chun one last look. In this look, it saw beside Yi Chun the 9 guardians showing a resolute expression, and also Yi Chun himself with a similar resolute expression, and saw the Great 5 Elements Sword Light divine art shining on Yi Chun's Crimson Fire, flying sword. The moment it saw the Great 5 Elements Sword Light divine art, the entire eye of the three-eyed skeleton filled with an incredulous look. Chapter 435 Soul Transformation. Great 5 Elements Sword Light divine art. You've actually cultivated the Biming Secret Tome, and you've even mastered the 3rd layer? The three-eyed skeleton couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. He had already made up his mind to execute Yi Chun, but when he saw the light of the Great 5 Elements Sword Light divine art on Yi Chun's flying sword, that determination suddenly vanished into thin air. Biming Secret Tome. How does this three-eyed skeleton know the name Biming Secret Tome? The exclamation of the three-eyed skeleton shook Yi Chun to his core, leaving him in disbelief. His Biming Secret Tome was obtained from the divine sword that fell into the barbaric wilderness continent from one of the 6 ancient clans in the minor spirit realm, the Biming clan. Yi Chun had used the Biming Secret Tome techniques many times, and this was the first time someone had called it by name directly. Moreover, it was the mysterious and strange three-eyed skeleton from the 5 Elements Mountain who had named the Biming Secret Tome. Yi Chun couldn't help but be utterly astonished. But at this moment, at the final phase of the life-or-death battle, Yi Chun had no time for surprise. He saw that the three-eyed skeleton seemed to be caught in some inexplicable astonishment, so of course, he would not miss the best opportunity to slay the three-eyed skeleton. In an instant, Yi Chun disappeared from the void. The next moment, his flying sword, Crimson Fire, imbued with his divine power and flashing with the Great 5 Elements Sword Light divine art, metal, wood, water, fire, earth divine arts, and even enhanced with the might of the 810 forms of Yi Chun's ice-sealed divine body, suddenly shot out towards the three-eyed skeleton. At that time, with the strongest techniques of Yi Chun enhancing it, the entire supreme sacred weapon, the Crimson Fire flying sword, had turned entirely red. It completely pierced through the void, and for a brief moment, time and space in the void seemed to come to a mysterious halt. The next moment, the flying sword Crimson Fire pierced directly towards the skull of the three-eyed skeleton. At this point, the three-eyed skeleton recovered from his shock. It seemed he was unwilling to directly confront Yi Chun, and he rapidly retreated backward. But his retreat was no match for the speed of the Crimson Fire flying sword, which contained all of Yi Chen's combat power. Was it? The flying sword still charged directly towards his skull. Seeing that the flying sword, Crimson Fire, could potentially pierce through the skull of the three-eyed skeleton in the next moment, the three-eyed skeleton finally stopped dodging. The golden lethal light from his third eye, which had been gathering but not yet released, suddenly shot out towards the approaching flying sword. The red light of the flying sword, Crimson Fire, collided with the golden lethal light from the third eye in the next moment, right in the midst of the void. This tremendous collision created a terrifying void black hole at the point of impact, and at the same time, an immense divine force resulting from the collision sent the flying sword, along with Yi Chen and the three-eyed skeleton on the other side, flying backward in a frantic retreat. I still can't slay the three-eyed skeleton? Seeing that even a sudden strike while the three-eyed skeleton was distracted still failed to kill him, Yi Chen, mid-retreat, already knew that his only option left was to trigger the simultaneous self-destruction of the True God talisman given to him by True Phoenix and Mulan True God, along with the self-destruction of his life-bound flying sword, to engage in a final cataclysmic battle with the three-eyed skeleton. However, in that scenario it was likely not just he, but also the 9 ice-sealed guardians who might not survive. As Yi Chen entertained this final thought, the three-eyed skeleton on the other side was also in complete shock. Not only did he witness Yi Chen using the great 5 elements sword light divine art, but even his golden lethal light, which he emitted on instinct at the last moment, was still blocked by Yi Chen. Neither could overpower the other with their ultimate moves. Thinking of the origins of the great 5 elements sword light, the three-eyed skeleton no longer intended to fight Yi Chen. Cease fighting. From within the void, the three-eyed skeleton, having stopped his retreat, directly called out loudly to Yi Chen. Cease fighting. Hearing the three-eyed skeleton's voice, both Yi Chen and the 9 ice-sealed guardians turning towards him looked at the three-eyed skeleton. Beforehand, the three-eyed skeleton had claimed he would definitely kill him, so of course, Yi Chen would show no weakness towards the three-eyed skeleton. If it were truly a fight to the death, then it would definitely last to the bitter end. But the sudden mention of great 5 elements sword light by the three-eyed skeleton, combined with the moment of shocked hesitation, and now the direct shout to stop fighting, made Yi Chen's heart skip a beat. Could it be that there was a turnaround in this battle to the death? Though Yi Chen remained extremely wary of the ruthlessness of the three-eyed skeleton, he also knew that even if he used all of his trump cards, the best he could hope for was a mutual destruction with the three-eyed skeleton, and not to emerge victorious while slaying the three-eyed skeleton. Now that the three-eyed skeleton had called for a halt, Yi Chen wanted to hear what the three-eyed skeleton had to say. Weren't you set on killing me? Why call for a halt? In the midst of the void, hundreds of zhang apart, Yi Chen, with the flying sword and True God talisman in hand, asked the three-eyed skeleton. However, the three-eyed skeleton didn't directly answer Yi Chen's question. His 3 eyes fixed on Yi Chen, he said, "Young man, your techniques have surprised me time and again, but what surprised me the most was the great 5 elements sword light divine art you just used. I must ask you, where did you obtain the Biming secret tome to practice this great 5 elements sword light divine art?" Hearing the three-eyed skeleton mention the great 5 elements sword light divine art and the Biming secret tome again, Yi Chen had an epiphany. This three-eyed skeleton definitely had a connection with the Biming secret tome and the Biming clan. Otherwise, of all Yi Chen's techniques, many were far more powerful than the great 5 elements sword light divine art, and the three-eyed skeleton wouldn't have been so astoundingly surprised by it, let alone be able to name the Biming secret tome behind it. Where I got the Biming secret tome from? Yi Chen looked towards the three-eyed skeleton. I might as well tell you, I obtained this secret tome from a divine sword that had fallen from the Biming clan. According to the spirit of the divine sword, over 3,000 years ago, its master, a true god of the Biming clan, had a battle with a true god of the Blood God clan, which eventually led to the divine sword's fall. Over 3,000 years ago? You fought a true god of the Blood God clan and caused the divine sword to fall, from which you obtained the Biming secret tome? Upon hearing Yi Chen's words, The three-eyed skeleton's three divine eyes flashed with a moment of inexplicable emotion. Filled with sorrow, he exclaimed, "No wonder I haven't seen my master for so many years. His divine sword has fallen." Turns out, he had an encounter with a true god of the Blood God clan. It must have been over the matter of the Biming Divine Sea. The Blood God clan again. Because of that beast's betrayal, I almost died at the hands of the Blood God clan. My divine body nearly annihilated. As it turns out, my master also met with disaster because of the Blood God clan. I can't deal with the Blood God clan yet, but this time, I absolutely cannot let that beast off lightly. In his indignation, the three-eyed skeleton finally calmed down and collected his thoughts. He looked directly at Yi Chen. "Young man, I was absolutely going to kill you, but since you are related to the Biming clan, this time, I will spare your life. Tell me, where did you encounter that fallen divine sword?" Yi Chen gazed deeply at the three-eyed skeleton. "Spare my life? If we really fought, even if I couldn't kill you, we'd both probably perish together. It's not a matter of you sparing me. And as for where the sword of the divine artifact is, I won't tell you." Though Yi Chen was surprised by the change in the three-eyed skeleton's demeanor, and even faintly guessed its association with the Biming clan, but now was not the time to spill everything he knew. Hearing Yi Chen's words, the three-eyed skeleton laughed instead of getting angry. "Good. You are truly worthy of being the youth who obtained the inheritance from the divine sword. Since you are unwilling to inform me about the divine sword, once I deal with the matters of the Five Elements Mountain, I will eventually unravel the truth. Moreover, I want to let you know, it's indeed very hard for me to kill you, and if I truly exerted all my power to kill you, I would suffer a great loss, affecting the important matters of my Five Elements Mountain. But if it really came down to the last moment, as a true god, it would be quite difficult for you to have us both perish together," the three-eyed skeleton remarked. "Ha ha, young man, until we meet again." This skeleton laughed heartily and truly paid no further attention to Yi Chen, not engaging in a deadly struggle with him. Instead, it reached out a large hand toward the ground, and the corpse of the youth at the mid-stage of Heavenly Saint, who was using the Cyan Basket and the Cyan Belt magical treasures, along with the incredibly physically strong late-stage Heavenly Saint expert, and the corpse of another late-stage Heavenly Saint expert who used divine soul attack methods, instantly flew towards him. At the same time, 3 crystal-clear beads, carrying the dissipated and scattered divine souls of these 3 people, also entered the hand of the skeleton. Finally, with a large grasp toward the small earthen temple, something else flew out from within it, landing directly in his hand. Seeing that object, Yi Chen was also shocked, because it was exactly like the iron box that contained the treasure cave key, which he had received from Ao Lei. In the hand of the three-eyed skeleton, there also lay a treasure cave key, used to enter the divine heritage cave. After taking all the items into his possession, the three-eyed skeleton, right in front of Yi Chen's eyes, transformed into a beam of white light and plunged directly into the corpse of the youth at the mid-stage of the Heavenly Saint using the Cyan Basket and the Cyan Belt magical treasures. In the endless flashes of white light, something astonishing happened. The previously deceased mid-stage Heavenly Saint youth suddenly flipped his eyes open, his eyelids reopening, and even the 3 large blood holes in his body instantly healed. The mid-stage Heavenly Saint youth seemed to come back to life. But Yi Chen knew that this was definitely not the original mid-stage Heavenly Saint youth. Apparently, the three-eyed skeleton had used some unknown method to enter the corpse of this mid-stage Heavenly Saint youth. Could it be a transmigration technique? Yi Chen remembered that he nearly got his body taken over by Heavenly Saint Moya in the Heavenly Saint ancient tomb. But that had involved using a divine soul to enter the body of a living person, eradicating the living person's divine soul to take over their body for himself. Yi Chen had never seen anyone using a skeleton to take over a dead person's corpse like this. As if hearing Yi Chen say the word transmigration, the revived mid-stage Heavenly Saint youth smiled at Yi Chen. "This is not a transmigration. This is my true God technique called soul transformation secret method." The expression while talking was truly that of the three-eyed skeleton. After addressing Yi Chen, the three-eyed skeleton no longer concerned himself with Yi Chun. He collected the few treasures he had acquired, and also took the two late-stage heavenly saint corpses, then reached out towards the distance. The previously closed gap to the exit of the ancient forbidden land appeared once again. Then, the three-eyed skeleton, now inhabiting the body of the mid-stage heavenly saint youth, gave Yi Chun, who was still in shock, one last deep look. In an instant, he shot towards the exit of the ancient forbidden land and disappeared in the next moment. Chapter 436. 18 Ancient Steels. Seeing the three-eyed skeleton use soul transformation to possess the body of a mid-heavenly saint realm youth, and then fly directly out of the ancient forbidden area, disappearing from sight, Yi Chun was also astonished. Yi Chun didn't expect that after hearing about the Beiming secret tome, the three-eyed skeleton would actually cease its deadly battle with him and simply leave like that. However, this wasn't the time to ponder these reasons in detail. Seeing that the three-eyed skeleton had truly left, Yi Chun quickly turned to the 9 great ice-sealed guards beside him. "Honorable predecessors, are you all unharmed?" During the life-and-death clash with the three-eyed skeleton, even though he had used the True God talismans to exhaust 99% of the three-eyed skeleton's combat power, the three-eyed skeleton was a genuine Four Tribulations True God expert, so Yi Chun was somewhat worried that the 9 great ice-sealed guards had sustained serious injuries. "Lord Yi Chun, we are unharmed. We're fine, just some minor injuries. A bit of meditation will heal us." "Lord Yi Chun, are you unharmed?" The 9 great ice-sealed guards all shook their heads at Yi Chun with smiles. Seeing that the 9 great ice-sealed guards were unharmed, save for some minor injuries on Bing Shiwu and Bing Shiqi, Yi Chun was relieved. He smiled gently at the 9 great ice-sealed guards. "I am also unharmed. This place is very strange, and even though that three-eyed skeleton has left, this is not a place to linger. Let's tidy up and prepare to leave." The 9 great ice-sealed guards all nodded their heads. After restoring the 9 great ice-sealed guards into the ice-snow jade pendant, Yi Chun lifted his gaze to survey the surroundings. Over 70 martial artists entered this enigmatic ancient forbidden land, and in the end, Yi Chun was the only one left alive. Most of the martial artists didn't even leave a corpse behind. Of the 3 corpses that remained, they were taken away by the three-eyed skeleton. Now, only the corpse of the late heavenly saint realm expert, whose true chi was like true fire, and the corpse of the late heavenly saint who had summoned the gray sparrow magic treasure, remained on the ground. Yi Chun noticed that, aside from the bodies of the 2 men, the three-eyed skeleton didn't take their belongings either. The gray sparrow magic treasure map that the late heavenly saint had activated earlier, which had killed most of the golden wasps, was still lying on the ground. Yi Chun didn't hesitate. With a divine sense induction, he collected the storage treasures from the bodies of the 2 heavenly saints and also took the gray sparrow magic treasure map. After making sure there was nothing else, he lightly pointed his finger, and 2 large holes appeared directly on the ground. Yi Chun then buried the corpses of the 2 late heavenly saint realm beings in the holes. Next, Yi Chun's figure flew toward the small earthen temple, but upon entering, he found it completely empty. Presumably, even if there were originally treasures inside, they must have been completely looted by the three-eyed skeleton. Even the remaining golden wasps were nowhere to be found. It was uncertain whether those golden wasps were a miraculous manifestation of the three-eyed skeleton's true chi, or if they had been taken away by it when it left. After seeing that there was nothing in the small earthen temple, Yi Chun returned outside and lifted his gaze to the 2 trees bearing void sky quintessence fruits. There were originally hundreds of fruits on these 2 trees. Some were picked by martial artists, and later, as the martial artists were killed, those fruits were incinerated by the combat power of the golden wasps. Now, over 100 void sky quintessence fruits remained on the 2 trees. The void sky quintessence fruit is a miraculous treasure for harmonizing and comprehending the 5 void sky laws, and Yi Chun certainly didn't hesitate. He reached out with a big hand, and the fruits began to shoot towards him. Eventually, all over 100 void sky quintessence fruits were collected by Yi Chun into the ice snow jade pendant. After finding nothing else of use in the ancient forbidden area and worrying that the exit gap might disappear, Yi-chun didn't hesitate and directly flew out. When he returned to the valley outside the ancient Forbidden Land, Yi-chun found that the three-eyed skeleton that had flown out first was not there and had long since vanished without a trace. There was only Yi-chun left in the entire valley. Recalling the boisterous scene when he and over 70 martial artists had arrived there, with more than a dozen late Heavenly Saint Realm experts among them, and now the only one who truly survived was himself. These over 70 people died just like that, not even leaving behind the slightest ripple. Even I came close to dying in there. With these thoughts, Yi-chun sighed and also felt a chill of fear. Yi-chun also thought that with such events occurring here, other martial artists who did not get the clue to the ancient forbidden area wouldn't know, and likewise, he feared that similar dangerous expeditions and slaughters were happening elsewhere and that there were countless explorers dying in places unknown to him. When the exploration of the Five Elements Mountain truly ended, out of the 2,000 to 3,000 martial artists who entered, it was unknown how many would live to leave the Five Elements Mountain. This is the exploration of the Five Elements Mountain, indeed full of extreme danger, with life and death hanging by a thread. After his reflections, Yi-chun's gaze became resolute once more. A near-extinction adventure did not dampen Yi-chun's spirits. Yi-chun knew that the path of martial arts cannot always be smooth sailing. Only through trials of blood and fire can one continue to grow and become stronger, to walk farther and reach higher. The exploration of the Forbidden Lands on this second mountain has come to an end, and now it's time to look at the other realms of this second mountain and witness the manifestation of the 5 great void sky principles that the legends speak of. Yi-chun's resolute gaze swept across the broader regions of the second mountain outside the valley, and then his figure vanished completely from this hollow. The next moment, he was flying amidst the giant peaks of the second mountain. As he flew, Yi-chun's mind kept flashing back to his battle with the three-eyed skeleton, and to that strange expression the skeleton had when it heard about the Biming secret tome and the sword of the divine artifact. It must be that the three-eyed skeleton has a significant connection with the owner of the divine sword, which is why it ceased its life and death struggle with me after learning I received the heritage from the divine sword. Yi-chun also recalled the treasure cave key that the three-eyed skeleton held in its hand at the end. It is rumored that every 100 years, 5 treasure cave keys would flow out from the Five Elements Mountain. I wonder from which occasion that treasure cave key in the three-eyed skeleton's hand came. Looking at its behavior, it seems it intends to venture into that divine heritage cave. Yi-chun further recalled that when they first encountered the three-eyed skeleton, it immediately asked them about Jin Liang, the saint heir of the Shenjin continent. Could it be that Jin Liang is also acquainted with this three-eyed skeleton? I wonder if the two of them are friends or foes. This three-eyed skeleton was originally a 4 tribulations true god, while Jin Liang, even as a saint heir, is only at the latter stages of the heavenly saint realm. How could they be acquainted? Yi-chun had countless doubts in his heart, all still unresolved. After thinking for a while, Yi-chun carefully remembered some matters. Then he directly flew towards the site where the 5 great void sky principles originated in the second mountain. On the left flank of the second mountain, there are 5 holy pools suffused with the 5 great void sky principles: the metal holy pool, the wood holy pool, the water holy pool, the fire holy pool, and the earth holy pool. Not far from these 5 holy pools are 5 colossal void caves, within which the endless 5 great void sky principles are being born, nurtured, grown, and destroyed. Yi-chun even saw that those 5 colossal void caves seemed to lead to a higher small spirit realm, as if there was some inexplicable connection with the small spirit realm. Yi-chun felt that the 5 great void sky principles seemed to be derived from a special gas in the small spirit realm, which was probably not the 5 elements true chi, but somewhat akin to the void sky true god power of the three-eyed skeleton. After observing the 5 holy pools and the 5 void caves for over half a month, Yi-chun finally left the second mountain and set off for the third mountain. In the deputy hall of the ice-sealed divine temple, Yi-chun had been cultivating for 3 years within the time acceleration of 100-fold, and the 5 great void sky principles he condensed in his rotation pill when striking at the rotation pill realm were starting to feel the touch of the breakthrough threshold. Although he had only observed the origins of the 5 great void sky principles on the second mountain for over half a month, Yi-chun had gained an even more hazy sense of comprehension. Now Yi-chun felt he was getting closer to breaking through from the early stage of the rotation pill realm to the middle stage. He was just lacking the last bit of summarization and sorting out of the 5 great void sky principles to completely break through the countless days of contemplation. In the third mountain, there lay the mysteriously profound 5 Elements Divine Temple, containing the insights and epiphanies of powerful explorers who had adventured through the 5 Elements Mountain in past expeditions. Yi-chun hastened to the third mountain, aiming to use these epiphanies to corroborate with his own, to launch a true assault on the middle stage of the rotation pill realm. While Yi-chun was rushing from the second mountain to the third mountain, at the mid-slope of the third mountain, which was even further back, already hundreds of martial artists had flown to a colossal divine temple on the waist of the third mountain. This huge divine temple was the most precious site for comprehending the 5 great void sky principles in the 5 Elements Mountain, the 5 Elements Divine Temple. One could see that this temple covered tens of thousands of zhang in area, and even more mysteriously, on the square outside the temple, stood 18 ancient stelae, each surpassing 1,000 zhang in height. Looking up at these ancient stelae, one could see countless inscriptions etched by various hands. And upon closer scrutiny of these inscriptions, one could feel the genuine power of the 5 great void sky principles coming to life within them. At this moment, many people were sitting cross-legged beneath the 18 giant ancient stelae, and yet others stood quite some distance away from the stelae. Among them, several martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent were standing outside the stelae, their faces filled with indignation as they looked towards the 20 or so martial artists beneath the 9th stele in the middle. This 9th ancient stele is rumored to record the most precious insights of the 5 great void sky principles. It is said that insights from 3 void sky true gods were left here during their heavenly saint realm days. We were the ones who first claimed this 9th stele, but it was taken over by these people. Detestable. It's so detestable. They want to gain insights, but don't we too? They're just bullying us because the barbaric wilderness continent doesn't have as many strong individuals as they do, or because no late-stage heavenly saints have come on our behalf. They may have 3 late-stage heavenly saints, but our skyscraper palace master alone is worth 2 of their late-stage heavenly saints. And there's also Yi-chun. I heard Yi-chun is accompanied by 2 senior helpers who are also late-stage heavenly saints. Just wait until the skyscraper palace master and Yi-chun arrive. We'll make them pay. Chapter 437. The Third Mountain. The martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent were seething with indignation after the 9th ancient stele was snatched away. The 20 or so martial artists sitting under the 9th ancient stele, some were meditating with their eyes closed, others were looking mockingly at the group from the barbaric wilderness continent, whispering to each other. The warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent really overestimate themselves, daring to compete for the 9th ancient stele. Humph! Don't they know that this stele and the 10th ancient stele are the 2 most precious steles of the 5 Elements Divine Temple? Historically, only those warriors from powerful continents could comprehend underneath these steles. Anyone else would definitely be driven away. In the past, these 2 steles were always occupied by martial artists from the 5 Elements continent or the Myriad Beasts Alliance. This time, for some unknown reason, neither of these 2 major forces sent any real powerhouses here. Therefore, naturally, it's our turn for continents like the Purple Dawn continent and the Heavenly Vast continent to occupy them. The Heavenly Vast continent has good relations with the Heavens continent and has a subordinate continent, the Heavens Pole continent. Their martial artists are cultivating under the 10th ancient stele. Our Purple Dawn continent also has 2 subordinate continents, adding up to 6 late-stage heavenly saints coming this time from the Purple Dawn continent alone. This time, the number 1 powerhouse from our Purple Dawn continent, a top late-stage heavenly saint, Elder Minghua, has arrived at 5 Elements Mountain. He is expected here in the next few days. These barbarians from the barbaric wilderness continent think they can compete with our Purple Dawn continent just because they have a skyscraper palace master watching over them? They really don't know their place. Heh! Isn't that the truth? Look at them, still unconvinced, waiting for a strong contender from their continent to take their side. Humph, even if the skyscraper palace master of their continent comes personally. Once he sees our Elder Minghua from the Purple Dawn continent, He'll have to be extremely courteous and respectful. Take their side? They must be dreaming. Unless the palace master Yuan Li from their barbaric wilderness continent personally comes here, perhaps we might give palace master Yuan Li some face and allow them a few spots to cultivate here. But that skyscraper palace master is simply not qualified. In the rivalry and alliance of the 33 continents, the disputes among the martial artists from the 33 continents are dictated by the strength of the peak powerhouses and the overall power of their continents. The group of martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent sitting under the 9th Ancient Steel clearly did not take those martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent, a continent with weaker strength, seriously. The frustration of the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent under the 18 Ancient Steels, of the 5 Elements Divine Temple, and the cultivation and mockery of the Purple Dawn continent martial artists under the 9th Steel were all unknown to Yi Chun. At this moment, he was still on his way to the 3rd mountain of the 5 Elements Divine Temple. After leaving the quintessential pools and void pits of the 5 great heavenly laws on the 2nd mountain, Yi Chun flew for another 7 days before he finally crossed the void chasm between the 2nd mountain and the 3rd mountain and reached the midst of 3rd mountain. The 5 Elements Mountain, with its 5 mountains, is really too massive. Just traveling consumes so much time. I only delayed half a day in that forbidden ancient lands, plus over half a month observing the 5 great heavenly laws on the 2nd mountain. Including the time it took to travel across the 1st and 2nd mountains, I've already spent a month and 3 days here within the 5 Elements Mountain. There's only a total of 3 months for the adventure within the 5 Elements Mountain. Yi Chun stood at the foot of the enormous 3rd mountain, lamenting how quickly time was being consumed within the 5 Elements Mountain. Fortunately, I have finally reached the most important 3rd mountain. The 5 Elements Divine Temple is the most crucial place for my cultivation on this trip to the 5 Elements Mountain. Yi Chun looked up at the towering 3rd mountain, unable to see its peak, only gazing upon the mountain ranges rising like gigantic pillars before him. Reaching the 3rd mountain was often the furthest many martial artists would go exploring within the 5 Elements Mountain. The 4th mountain presented dangers far greater than that of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd mountains, and explorers rarely journeyed to it if not for the divine heritage cave within it. As for the 5th mountain, it was such a terrifying place that even the most supreme beings from the 33 continents could not explore it, and no one dared to step foot there. Yi Chun never considered going to the 5th mountain. Despite having received a treasure cave key from Ao Lei, he was still hesitant about visiting the Divine Heritage Cave on the 4th mountain. It would all depend on his cultivation progress within the 3rd mountain. With almost 2 months left, Yi Chun felt time was flying by swiftly, but he simply smiled lightly. Almost 2 months should be enough for him to cultivate properly in the 5 Elements Divine Temple at the 3rd mountain. That 5 Elements Divine Temple is towards the northern side of the 3rd mountain's waist. It will take about 3 days to reach there from the foothills, so I'd better hurry. Now at the verge of breaking through to the mid-stage of Rotating Pill, Yi Chun could hardly wait to see what the legendary place, where one could comprehend the 5 supreme heavenly laws, the 5 Elements Divine Temple, was like, and whether it would help him achieve a breakthrough. After taking a good look at the vast 3rd mountain from its base, Yi Chun sped off towards the direction of the 5 Elements Divine Temple. Within the 3rd mountain, the 5 Elements Phantom Beasts were far more formidable than those on the 1st and 2nd mountains. There were many more late-stage, heavenly saint-level fantastical beasts present as well. Of course, the pattern in which the 5 Elements Phantom Beasts appear is unfathomable. Some people suddenly encounter many formidable phantom beasts and are directly killed by them, while others have better luck, encountering only weaker phantom beasts and are able to travel smoothly. Yi Chun's luck, whether it ran out in the forbidden ancient lands or not, was certainly bad. On his way to the 5 Elements Divine Temple, he encountered 5 groups of powerful late-stage heavenly saint phantom beasts on the first day. Fortunately, Yi Chun had 9 great ice-sealed guards with him, and he also obtained a sacred grade, top-quality secret painting treasure he lingerie chart from a fallen late-stage heavenly saint powerhouse in the forbidden ancient lands, which eventually enabled Yi Chun to get through the deadly encirclement of those late-stage heavenly saint phantom beast groups with more shocks than dangers. After encountering the 5 groups of powerful late-stage heavenly saint phantom beasts on the first day, Yi-chun had a smooth journey for the first half of the second day. However, in the afternoon, when Yi-chun flew into a mountain valley, he frowned again. Because Yi-chun directly sensed that he had not detected any anomaly in this mountain valley before, but upon flying in, he suddenly found a mysterious black-robed late-stage heavenly saint figure fighting fiercely with 10 late-stage heavenly saint-level phantom beasts. This black-robed late-stage heavenly saint being was also extraordinarily powerful, managing to hold his own against 10 late-stage heavenly saint-level phantom beasts. Yi-chun could clearly feel that among the 10 late-stage heavenly saint-level phantom beasts, 3 had combat power not inferior to Bing Shirsan. One of them, a fire lion fantastical beast, was almost at the same level of combat power as Bing Shire. The late-stage heavenly saint who was battling the 10 phantom beasts, from the investigation of the 9 ice-sealed guards and Yi-chun's own observation, was probably even more powerful than Palace Master Yuan Li. He was just slightly weaker than the first among the 9 ice-sealed guards who were with Yi-chun, Bing Shi. This person could absolutely be called a peak late-stage heavenly saint powerhouse, probably one of the strongest beings in one of the 33 continents. However, Yi-chun didn't recognize this person. Yi-chun only saw that even though this black-robed late-stage heavenly saint was likely one of the strongest beings of a continent, under the siege of 10 late-stage heavenly saint-level phantom beasts, especially under the attack of the 3 top phantom beasts, he was clearly at a disadvantage. If not for his tremendous strength, he would have fallen amidst this phantom beast onslaught much earlier. Even though he was still holding on, it was doubtful that he could last much longer. When Yi-chun inadvertently flew into this peculiar mountain valley and stumbled upon this great battle, the late-stage heavenly saint in the black robes, already in deep frustration, exclaimed, "I've been to the 3rd mountain 5 times, and I've never been so unlucky as to encounter a siege by 10 high-level phantom beasts. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have taken this shortcut. Now I'm in big trouble. Under the combined attack of these 10 phantom beasts, even I find it hard to resist. To think, Minghua, rampaging across the 33 continents, would I perish here?" Fighting against the 10 phantom beasts and feeling increasingly overwhelmed, the black-robed heavenly saint already considered escaping. But the 10 phantom beasts didn't give him any chance to flee and kept him tightly surrounded. The 10 phantom beasts coordinated flawlessly. Without killing the leading fire lion fantastical beast, escaping was impossible. The more he fought, the more he felt dismayed. Just as he was about to give up upon not being able to hold on any longer, he suddenly sensed someone else had broken into the mountain valley. The black-robed heavenly saint's heart surged with joy. If a powerful helper arrived, he might be able to escape this deathly predicament. When the black-robed heavenly saint sent out a wisp of divine consciousness to check who had entered the valley and saw Yi-chun, his heart plummeted. The newcomer was actually a young boy at the early stage of rotating pill. "It seems that the heavens want to abandon me. It's my extreme misfortune to be besieged by these 10 phantom beasts. Someone finally comes by as I did, only to be a rotating pill. Pity that I am about to die. There seems to be no chance of survival this time. This is the way of the martial arts world. Even though I rampaged across the 33 continents, I'm about to fall here." The black-robed elder's heart completely sank in that instant, and he was filled with good intentions as he approached death. "This rotating pill is also unlucky. Alas, I'll try to fight. If I can't escape, let's not let him die here, too." The black-robed elder, while fighting the phantom beast group, shouted to Yi-chun, who had just entered the valley, "Run! If you don't run now, it will be too late." Because he was distracted to observe the newcomer, the black-robed heavenly saint, under the assault of the 10 phantom beasts, was even more forced to keep retreating, completely at a disadvantage despite making a last stand. The moment he shouted, he was about to be driven into a corner. If driven to a dead end, the black-robed heavenly saint, who was already at an absolute disadvantage, would definitely die without a doubt. Just as the black-robed heavenly saint was about to sigh in despair and almost ready to give up resisting, suddenly, 2 flashes of light appeared by his side. The 2 flashes of light instantly killed the 3 most powerful phantom beasts among the 10. When the black-robed heavenly saint looked towards the 2 flashes of light, He was astonished to discover that the one who struck down the strongest fire lion fantastical beast was the very same early-stage rotating pill young boy he was warning to escape. Chapter 438 Surprised Martial Artists. How is that possible? The black-robed heavenly saint was completely stunned. He could never have imagined that a mere early Spindan youth would be able to directly kill the most powerful late-stage heavenly saint-level fire lion fantastical beast. He had urged him to flee quickly, but this early Spindan youth had not only not fled but directly saved his life. When the black-robed heavenly saint looked at the early Spindan youth and saw the mysterious divine light flickering on his body, even he, a top-notch late-stage heavenly saint with immeasurable experience, cried out in astonishment, "Divine power! Is this the divine power that only a true God possesses?" The one who had lent a hand to help the black-robed heavenly saint out of crisis was none other than Yi Chun, who had come to this valley in the mountains. Seeing that the black-robed heavenly saint was about to die, Yi Chun couldn't just stand by and watch, especially since the black-robed heavenly saint, even at the moment of life and death, had told him to hurry and flee. Yi Chun felt a tinge of fondness for the black-robed heavenly saint. So, when he saw the 10 fantastical beasts cornering the black-robed elder to a dead end, Yi Chun had Bing Shi take action, and he himself also burned a bit of the true God talisman's power to directly kill the most powerful fire lion fantastical beast. Even that most powerful of the 10 late-stage heavenly saint fantastical beasts, in the face of true God talisman power, didn't stand a chance. Yi Chun and Bing Shi's lightning-fast actions directly killed the 3 strongest fantastical beasts. As for the remaining 7 fantastical beasts, seeing Yi Chun and Bing Shi arrive like gods from the heavens, they were so scared that they instantly fled, not daring to surround Yi Chun and Bing Shi anymore. Of course, Yi Chun and Bing Shi wouldn't let these 7 fantastical beasts escape. PFFF, 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 PFFF. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. In the vacuum, 7 streaks of light flashed, and the 7 fantastical beasts instantly died on the spot. From the moment Yi Chun and Bing Shi took action to the death of all 10 fantastical beasts, not even a single breath's time had passed. When the black-robed heavenly saint saw the other 7 fantastical beasts also fall dead, he finally snapped out of his stunned state. His eyes, filled with shocking awe, turned towards Yi Chun, and then to Bing Shi by Yi Chen's side, the 2 saviors who had rescued him. On the body of the early Spindan youth flickered the same divine power that he had faintly sensed during his travels in the upper realm. And the other, a white Dapeng giant beast, emitted an aura that even made the black-robed elder, one of the top beings of a continent, tremble in his heart and tighten his breathing. Only then did the black-robed elder realize that these were not just any martial artists who couldn't help. These 2 were clearly existences even more formidable than himself. After taking a deep breath, the black-robed elder regained his composure from the shock of escaping death by a hair's breadth. He looked at Yi Chun and Bing Shi and said respectfully, "Thank you both for saving my life. My name is Ming Hua from the Ling Shao Palace of the Purple Dawn continent. May I know the esteemed names of my saviors." Even as a top-notch late-stage heavenly saint, at this moment before the early Spindan youth, the black-robed elder did not dare to be the slightest bit presumptuous. Although he clearly discerned that Yi Chun was indeed a very young lad with a small bone age, and that he was truly in the early stage of Spindan, the immense divine power emitted from Yi Chun's body moments earlier told the exceedingly experienced black-robed elder that there certainly stood a true God behind this youth. And not just any true God, but an exceedingly formidable one. Only a supremely formidable true God could enable an early Spindan youth to wield such level of divine power. Not only the power of a true God, but the youth's own combat abilities were definitely extraordinary, having certainly reached heavenly saint level, to wield true God's power so fluently. Saving his life, backed by a powerful true God, with extraordinary combat strength by himself, from every aspect, the black-robed elder had to be extremely courteous towards him. He was extremely courteous towards Yi Chun, and naturally no less courteous towards Bing Shi. Bing Shi was an existence even more formidable than the black-robed elder himself, so of course, the elder dared not be presumptuous. The Purple Dawn continent is one of the 33 continents, with a strength stronger than our barbaric wilderness continent. I've heard that there are even 2 continents that are directly subordinated to the Purple Dawn continent. And that Lingxiao Palace, I've heard, is the number 1 sect of the Purple Dawn continent. Minghua? It is said that the supreme elder of the Lingxiao Palace, the number 1 powerful being of the entire Purple Dawn continent, is called Elder Minghua. Could it be him? Upon hearing what the black-robed elder said, Yi Chen's mind instantly recalled some details about the Purple Dawn continent that he had learned from the Mystery Pavilion. Hearing the black-robed elder's respectful inquiry, Bing Shi simply smiled and nodded to the black-robed elder. But Yi Chen, driven by curiosity, couldn't help but ask the black-robed elder, "Senior, are you the supreme elder Minghua of the Lingxiao Palace?" "My name is Yi Chen, from the barbaric wilderness continent. This honored elder here is Bing Shi, a senior protecting me." Upon being called a senior, the black-robed elder frantically waved his hands. "Senior? No, my friend. Please don't call me senior. If you don't mind, just call me Minghua, my friend." It's unexpected that Yi Chen, my friend, has heard of this old man. Yes, I am indeed that Minghua from the Lingxiao Palace. Friend, that is a courteous title among peers. The late-stage top-level heavenly saint, the elder Minghua, was directly on an equal footing with Yi Chen. Chapter 439. Minghua, Bing Shi, I really have to thank you both for saving my life this time. Otherwise, I truly would have died here. This mountain valley is also strange. There's no way to sense it from the outside. Who would have thought that there would be such a powerful group of phantom beasts inside, nearly causing me to take a nasty fall? I've been to 5 Elements Mountain several times now, and I've never been in such a sorry state. Thinking back to the previous situation, the black-robed elder Minghua still felt a shiver of fear. After his scare, Elder Minghua suddenly slapped his forehead.
Yi Chen.
I seem to have heard that name before. Barbaric wilderness continent? Could you be the one who won a gamble against the little saintess Huameyer of the Leaving Fire continent, and also crossed swords with Ao Lei of the Myriad Beasts Alliance, that Yi Chen? Upon hearing Yi Chen's name, Elder Minghua instantly recalled some rumors from Rift Sky City that he had heard when he rushed to the Heavenly Evolution continent for the adventure to 5 Elements Mountain. Elder Minghua, indeed I am that Yi Chen. Yi Chen smiled and nodded, yet he did not address Elder Minghua as the latter had suggested. After all, he was a junior in the rotating pill realm, and there was a vast difference in both lifespan and seniority compared to such a top-notch late-stage heavenly saint being. Hearing that this black-robed elder was truly Elder Minghua, the top figure from Purple Dawn continent, Yi Chen was quite surprised. This elder's true strength was even greater than Palace Master Yuan Li's, and when Yi Chen had watched him battling with 10 late-stage heavenly saint phantom beasts earlier, he had felt that this man must be a supremely strong figure in a continent. Who would have thought that he was indeed the top figure of a continent, and not just any continent, but Purple Dawn continent, which was even more powerful than the barbaric wilderness continent. Being the top figure of a continent, Yi Chen couldn't help but feel a sense of respect for him. Seeing that Yi Chen remained courteous toward him and didn't act arrogantly or domineeringly just because he had Bing Shi at his side, or because of the formidable true god behind him, Elder Minghua felt even more approval in his heart. Such a young man had the pride that a young man should have, and at the same time a grace many young people lacked. He was indeed extraordinary. While Yi Chen was polite to him, he would still not take Yi Chen lightly. I am ashamed, truly ashamed. I have roamed across 33 continents for many years, and yet I nearly perished in the enigmatic 5 Elements Mountain. This 5 Elements Mountain is indeed a place where we all need to be extremely cautious. Elder Minghua shook his head and said to Yi Chen with a smile, "Your name, Yi Chen, is like thunder in my ears. It's a pity that I arrived in Rift Sky City later and didn't get to see your outstanding performance at the Thousand Zun platform and the Desert Sea Underground Palace auction. It's truly regrettable. By the way, if you two don't mind, shall we go to the 5 Elements Divine Temple together?" Elder Minghua asked with a smile, having heard that Yichun and Bingshi were also headed to the Five Elements Divine Temple. It seems to be your first time at Five Elements Mountain. I have been to the Five Elements Divine Temple 3 times. Once there, I can give you a good introduction to some of the things inside the temple. Elder Minghua, you're too kind. Let's proceed together. However, my Bingshi usually prefers not to show himself, so I must ask Elder Minghua to keep his affairs private. Understood. Understood. After chatting a few more sentences with Elder Minghua, Yichun recalled Bingshi back into the Ice Snow Jade Pendant, and then flew with Elder Minghua towards the third mountain's midsection, where the Five Elements Divine Temple was located. Frustration. Utter frustration. This was the mood of the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent who were sitting cross-legged under the 14th ancient stele at that time. They had originally thought that once the skyscraper palace master arrived at the Five Elements Divine Temple, they would be able to take back the 9th ancient stele that had been monopolized by the warriors of the Purple Dawn continent. But who would have known? At the same time the skyscraper palace master arrived, 2 more late-stage heaven saints from the Purple Dawn continent side appeared. And when the skyscraper palace master heard about the 9th ancient stele being taken, his brows furrowed, and upon seeing the 5 late-stage heaven saints under it, he sighed deeply. Finally, with no other choice, he glanced towards the direction of the 9th ancient stele, said nothing, and walked straight towards the 14th ancient stele. It was only after the skyscraper palace master had a conversation with the leading late-stage heaven saint from the 9th star continent at the site of the 14th ancient stele that these warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent were able to cultivate there. The Five Elements Divine Temple, 18 ancient steles. Only within specific areas beneath each ancient stele can one truly sense the inscriptions on the stele. Being able to cultivate under the 14th ancient stele was not bad, but of course it couldn't compare with cultivating at the site of the 9th ancient stele. Unable to take back the 9th ancient stele, the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent were naturally filled with frustration. They, of course, wouldn't blame the skyscraper palace master. What frustrated them was that only now did they realize that back on the barbaric wilderness continent, they belonged to the absolute peak sects and were disciples of those sects. But when they arrived at this place teeming with strong warriors from 33 continents, they counted for nothing. Even the barbaric wilderness continent, even the skyscraper palace master, counted for nothing here. This was what truly frustrated these martial artists. While the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent were filled with frustration under the 14th ancient stele, many warriors from the Purple Dawn continent sitting cross-legged under the 9th ancient stele were smug. Seeing with their own eyes the warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent helplessly walking towards the 14th ancient stele and not daring to come over to argue for the 9th, such a feeling almost made the warriors from the Purple Dawn continent float on air. There was a time when they could only watch enviously as the warriors from the Five Elements continent and the alliance of myriad beasts cultivated at the 9th and 10th ancient steles, but now, they were the ones cultivating here, and they had taken the opportunity from the warriors of even lesser continents to cultivate here. This, of course, gave them a strong sense of pride as the more powerful. However, just as one side was frustrated and the other was exceedingly proud, and many other martial artists were either meditating or discussing under the 18 ancient steles, a strong fluctuation of energy suddenly transmitted through the sky above the third mountain of the Five Elements Divine Temple. This kind of energy fluctuation led many martial artists meditating under the ancient steles to look up involuntarily towards the sky. The warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent and the Purple Dawn continent also looked up at the sky one after another. Is this aura? Could it be that a top late-stage heaven saint powerhouse has arrived? All the martial artists, witnessing the powerful fluctuation of energy in the sky, began to speculate. At that moment, the void above the Five Elements Divine Temple suddenly tore open, and 2 figures stepped out from the cracks in the void. One of the figures laughed heartily as he said to the other, "Minghua, this is the Five Elements Divine Temple." Chapter 440 Dispute. When they saw these 2 figures smiling and conversing, all of the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent, even the skyscraper palace master, were so astonished that their mouths hung open. As for many of the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent, they showed expressions of complete disbelief. The warriors of the barbaric wilderness continent were surprised that their continent's genius youth, Yi-chan, was actually able to converse so freely and easily with a top-level figure in the late stage of heavenly sacred. Moreover, looking at the degree of politeness this top-level late-stage heavenly sacred figure showed towards Yi-chan, there was even a hint of inexplicable reverence. To get such a top-level late-stage heavenly sacred figure to act this way in front of so many martial artists, one could only imagine how seriously he must regard Yi-chan. The astonishment of the skyscraper palace master from the barbarian warrior group was even more intense. Being one of the three great palace masters of the heavenly sacred palace, he was naturally extremely familiar with the top figures of all 33 continents. The top-level late-stage heavenly sacred figure who had come from the sky, the skyscraper palace master recognized him at a glance. This person was none other than Elder Minghua, the #1 powerhouse from the Purple Dawn continent who had some conflicts with their barbaric wilderness continent at the 9th Ancient Steel. The skyscraper palace master knew that Yi-chan would definitely come to train at the Five Elements Divine Temple. But for the life of him, he couldn't have imagined that Yi-chan would come along with Elder Minghua, and that Elder Minghua would be so polite to Yi-chan. This completely shattered the understanding of the skyscraper palace master. You must understand that Elder Minghua was an elder warrior mightier even than Palace Master Yuan Li. Although Palace Master Yuan Li's innate talent was stronger than Elder Minghua's, in terms of real combat power, the current Palace Master Yuan Li was still no match for Elder Minghua. Such a personage, such a dominant existence from a whole continent, being so polite to a young boy? If it weren't for the fact that this youth, Yi-chan, had already gotten the skyscraper palace master used to surprises, the palace master might have thought he was hallucinating. On the side of the barbaric wilderness continent, there was boundless astonishment. The degree of surprise among those from the Purple Dawn continent was by no means less than that on the barbaric wilderness continent's side. Many martial artists of the Purple Dawn continent had never seen the #1 person of their entire continent, their supreme elder, being so polite to any younger person. The politeness even carried a sense of reverence. If this were to be said out loud, probably no martial artists from the entire Purple Dawn continent would believe it. Among the group of Purple Dawn continent martial artists, some couldn't believe it because they recognized Yi-chan. These martial artists had previously arrived in Rift Sky City on the Heavenly Evolution continent and had already taken note of Yi-chan's wager fight with Huameyer. Many had even witnessed the clash between Yi-chan and Aole in the Sand Sea Palace firsthand. They naturally knew this youth was Yi-chan from the barbaric wilderness continent. Although they recognized Yi-chan's prowess and that he even had 2 senior heavenly sacred helpers with him, they couldn't imagine that Yi-chan would have gone so far as to develop a relationship with their supreme elder, and that their supreme elder would personally introduce him to the matters within the Five Elements Divine Temple. Many of the other martial artists below the 18th Ancient Steels, knowing the previous dissension between the barbaric wilderness continent and the Purple Dawn continent over the 9th Ancient Steel, couldn't help but ponder. The warriors from the barbaric wilderness continent had suffered a loss at the 9th Ancient Steel. Previously, even when the skyscraper palace master came, he wasn't able to save face, and now it's very likely that things will change. If Yi-chan really has the strength to make even Elder Minghua extremely courteous, then we are in for a good show. The martial artists below exhibited various expressions, while Elder Minghua in the sky, after discussing the 18th Ancient Steels with Yi-chan, had already descended with Yi-chan to the plaza of the Five Elements Divine Temple where the Steels resided. Yi-chan had already seen the skyscraper palace master in the sky, and as soon as he descended, he hastened to fly over to him. Elder Minghua, with a smile, glanced at the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent and, instead of going over to their side first, followed Yi-chan to the 14th Ancient Steel. "Palace Master, you've arrived here so early," Yi-chan said with a smile to the skyscraper palace master. The skyscraper palace master's face had not yet recovered from his shock. Seeing Yi-chan and Elder Minghua fly over to his side, he nodded with a smile at Yi-chan, then made a polite bow to Palace Master Minghua. "Minghua, I didn't expect you to come to the Five Elements Divine Temple." As the skyscraper palace master greeted Elder Minghua, the leading late-stage heavenly sacred presence from Jimong continent, a middle-aged man in gray, also approached Elder Minghua and started greeting him. Elder Minghua smiled. What a coincidence. I happened to run into Yi-chan on the way and came over with him.
Yi-chan.
Hearing Elder Minghua call Yi-chan a friend once again, the leading late-stage heavenly sacred presence from Jumong continent couldn't help but size up Yi-chan, and the skyscraper palace master's expression became even more peculiar. At that moment, realizing that the skyscraper palace master and the leading late-stage heavenly sacred presence from Jumong continent were greeting this top-tier, late-stage heavenly sacred figure in black robes who had just flown in front of them, the martial artists of the barbaric wilderness continent finally came to know who this black-robed elder was. Upon hearing that this black-robed elder was the #1 powerhouse from the Purple Dawn continent with whom they had a conflict, the faces of the martial artists of the barbaric wilderness continent also turned odd. They hadn't expected that, following their dispute, the opposing side's #1 powerhouse would actually come directly to them and be so exceedingly polite to Yi-chan from their continent. Seeing everyone's strange expressions, Elder Minghua, with his keen insight, immediately spotted that something was amiss. And Yi-chan too felt that something was off, also turning to look at the skyscraper palace master. Skyscraper, what's going on? Why do I feel that the gaze of the martial artists here towards me is quite hostile? Elder Minghua asked with a smile, turning to the skyscraper palace master. The skyscraper palace master waved his hand dismissively. It's nothing at all. Not wanting to explicitly mention the conflict between the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent and the Purple Dawn continent over the 9th ancient steel, the skyscraper palace master chose to remain silent. However, a spiraling pill late-stage youth from the barbaric wilderness continent could no longer restrain himself and blurted out, "It's all because your Purple Dawn continent's martial artists have gone too far, snatching away the 9th ancient steel we had rightfully claimed." Halfway through his accusation, the youth realized he was speaking to a top-tier heavenly sacred late-stage existence and hurriedly quieted down. But Elder Minghua instantly understood the situation. Elder Minghua's expression also turned sour in an instant. Had it been earlier, he might have scolded the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent, partly out of consideration for Palace Master Yuan Li from the barbaric wilderness continent. Of course, his reprimand wouldn't have been too severe, and there was no way they would have given back the 9th ancient steel. But now, Yi-chan was standing right beside Elder Minghua. When he saw Yi-chan frown upon hearing about the dispute between the two parties, Elder Minghua's heart skipped a beat. Others might see Yi-chan as a talented young martial artist, but he knew just how formidable Yi-chan was. Not only had this young man saved his life, he also possessed the techniques of a true god, and had the backing of a fearsome void sky true god. Even now, he had a formidable Bingshi within his spatial treasure. The reason why Elder Minghua had been so courteous to Yi-chan all along, even showing a trace of reverence amidst a crowd of martial artists upon their arrival at the Five Elements Divine Temple, was not only because Yi-chan had saved his life. Another reason was the dread Yi-chan's true strength inspired in him. At this moment, if he truly upset Yi-chan, the relationship he had built with Yi-chan during this journey would go to waste. With this in mind, how could Elder Minghua remain calm? With his face darkening, his eyes swiftly turned toward the group of martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent under the 9th ancient steel, and his furious voice directly reached the ears of the Purple Dawn continent martial artists. You actually snatched the 9th ancient steel directly from the martial artists of the barbaric wilderness continent, and even drove them away? Elder Minghua, without inquiring about the cause of the incident or whether the side of the barbaric wilderness continent was exaggerating, directly scolded the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent. The implication of this was not lost on the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent and the others under the 18 ancient steels. It was clear that Elder Minghua had no intention of backing the Purple Dawn continent, but was instead holding the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent accountable, choosing not to support his own continent, but instead holding the other continent responsible. No one believed that Elder Minghua was simply being generous. They all suspected there was only one possible reason. It was because of Yi-chan, the young martial artist from the barbaric wilderness continent who had come with Elder Minghua. With that thought, the martial artists from the other continents carefully studied Yi-chan, curious to see what was so remarkable about this young man that could make a top-tier heavenly sacred late-stage expert pay him such attention and show such deference. As for many of the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent, they felt a warm surge in their eyes, as the stifled resentment in their hearts seemed ready to burst forth. They had been incensed when the best ninth ancient steel had been snatched away by the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent. And with the arrival of the skyscraper palace master, they were even more disheartened that he had not been able to take a stand for them. Now, they had never imagined that a talented young martial artist from their continent could make the most powerful figure of the opposing side personally handle the matter and speak up for them. The thought that they might punish the domineering martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent, even if they couldn't retrieve the ninth ancient steel for enlightenment, made them want to shout out in exhilaration just for the sake of venting. With eyes fixed on the group from the Purple Dawn continent beneath the ninth ancient steel, the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent were filled with anticipation. But the martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent who were directly scolded by Elder Minghua were utterly petrified. Elder Minghua. He was the foremost figure of the Purple Dawn continent, a legendary existence. Who among the martial artists of the Purple Dawn continent could bear his wrath? At that moment, the 5 heavenly sacred late-stage strong martial artists from the Purple Dawn continent immediately flew before Elder Minghua. Among them, 2 who were disciples of Elder Minghua immediately knelt before him. Master, please calm your anger. We were not aware of these matters. We will investigate and clarify this matter immediately. Those 2 heavenly sacred hastily questioned the martial artists that first came to the ninth ancient steel from the Purple Dawn continent. Who caused the dispute with the barbaric wilderness continent? Trembling, over 20 people from the Purple Dawn continent stood up. Their legs shaking, they could never have imagined that a conflict over the ninth ancient steel with the barbaric wilderness continent would provoke Elder Minghua's ire and escalate to this extent. They could hardly believe what their fate would be if Elder Minghua truly decided to discipline them. At this time, Yichun, having made sense of the entire situation, finally took a deep breath and spoke calmly. Forget it, Minghua. Let's leave the matter at that. However, the ninth ancient steel must be returned to our people from the barbaric wilderness continent. This was the first time Yichun directly addressed Elder Minghua as Minghua, no longer calling him Elder Minghua as a senior. Yichun had realized that the Purple Dawn continent had clashed with the barbaric wilderness continent and dared to snatch away their steel simply because the overall strength of the martial artists from the barbaric wilderness continent was inferior to theirs. Looked down upon because they were weaker? If that was the case, then I, Yichun, will stand for the barbaric wilderness continent.